네, 안녕하세요. 저는 소리꾼 최보라입니다. 네, 만나서 반갑습니다. 오늘은 조금 특별한 공연을 준비해보았습니다. 동화 구연과 창작 판소리의 만남, 도서명은 벌거벗은 임금님입니다. 저희가 준비한 부분은 앞부분을 조금 준비해보았거든요. 재밌게 잘 들어주시면 좋을 것 같습니다. 시작해보도록 하겠습니다. 그때요, 우나라에 한 임금이 살고 있었는디, 이 나라 임금은 이 세상 모든 디자인의 옷을 소유하고 싶어 했겠다. 매일 아침 일어나서 잠자리에 들 때까지 옷을 수십 번, 수백 번씩 입어보는 것이 하루의 일과인 것이었겠다. 나는 우나라의 임금, 매일같이 새로운 옷을 입어보지. 세상에서 가장 멋진 옷은 나의 것, 나만의 것, 그 누구에게도 줄 수 없지. 중국에서 온 비단, 인도에서 온 실크, 질 좋은 옷, 화려한 옷, 댄디하고 잘 빠진 옷, 오늘은 이 옷, 내일은 저 옷, 모레는 저기 저 옷. 이보다 더 멋진 옷은 없을까? 더 화려한 옷은 없을까? 어떤 스타일도 소화 가능. 나는야 패션이 스타일리시 임금이다. 여봐라, 내 이번 생일잔치에는 그동안 입어보지 못한 아름답고 신비로운 옷을 입어보고 싶구나. 옷장에 있는 옷을 또 입기엔 체면이 서질 않는단 말이지. 온 동네를 샅샅이 뒤져서라도 능력 있는 재단사를 찾아 세상에서 단 하나뿐인 나만의 옷을 만들게 하여라. 예. 오세요 오세요 전국 각지 재단사들, 생일잔치 거리행차 가실 임금님 옷 만들 사람, 고급 비단 화려한 보석, 휘영찬란 빛이 나는 거리행차. 오세요 오세요 전국 각지 재단사들, 왕궁 재단사 되면 금은 보화 하사 받고 명예로운 직위 받고 거리 행차 임금님 옷 온 백성이 구경하지. 오세요 오세요 전국 각지 재단사들, 오세요 오세요 전국 각지 재단사들. 코로나 조심하시고 오늘도 행복한 하루 보내시길 바라겠습니다. 저는 소리꾼 최보라, 여기는 고수 도경한이었습니다. 감사합니다.
판소리와 동화구연을 접목한 벌거벗은 임금님 판소리 동화구연 공연 잘 감상하셨는지요? 최보라 소리꾼과 도경환 고수님께서 수고해 주셨습니다. 감사합니다. 안녕하세요. 저는 제13회 어린이청소년도서관 국제심포지움의 진행을 맡게 될 덕성여자대학교 문헌정보학과 정진수 교수입니다. 영광스럽게 12회 행사에 이어서 13회 심포지움의 진행도 맡게 되었는데요. 달라진 점이 있다면 이번 2021년 제13회 국제 심포지움은 코로나19 상황으로 인해서 온라인으로 진행이 된다는 점입니다. 책 읽는 나라에 미래가 있다.
The topic
미래를
of the
만드는 도서관을
2021
주제로 하는
International Symposium is the
2021년
future
국제
lies in
심포지움은
reading the libraries
국립어린이청소년도서관 유튜브
pioneering
채널로
the future.
실시간
We are
송출되고
live
있으며
streaming the
해외에
conference on
계신
YouTube National
사서분들도
Library
참여하실
for
수 있도록
Children and Young Adults
한국어와
channel.
영어 두
For the
개의
international
채널로
audience, we
송출되고
offer two
있습니다.
channels, one for
행사 진행에
Korean
앞서 한
and the
가지
other
안내
one for English.
말씀드리겠습니다. 오늘
Short
국내에서
housekeeping
온라인으로
note before we
시청하고
get
계시는 분들
started. If
중에서
you join the
참석
symposium
확인서를
online
제출해 주시는 분들께는
and submit the
4시간의
confirmation of attendance,
상시
4
학습
hours are
시간이 인정이
credited
되며
to
또
your
100분을
learning
추첨하여
hours, and we
모바일
will raffle a
상품권을
mobile
드린다고
gift
합니다.
voucher to 100
참석
people.
확인서 양식은 4시 30분에
The
유튜브
paper of
채팅창에
confirmation of
공지하겠습니다.
attendance
오늘
will be
행사가
uploaded
끝나고
on YouTube chat
5시
on
30분까지 제출해
4:30. You
주시면
may submit
되겠습니다.
it by
자,
5:30
행사의 첫
today.
순서로 국립어린이청소년도서관 이신호 관장님의 환영사가 있겠습니다.
We will have Director General Lee Shin-ho for
안녕하십니까.
his welcoming speech. Good
국립어린이청소년도서관
afternoon. I am
이신호
Lee Shin-ho, Director General of National Library for Children and Young Adults of Republic of Korea.
올해 하반기에
For the
코로나19
second half
상황이
of this year,
호전되어
we hope that the COVID-19
현장에서 여러분들을
situation will be
모시고
improved,
심포지엄을
so we can
진행할
have
수
you
있을까
here
하는
at the
기대를
symposium.
했었는데 델타 변이 확산
However,
등으로 인해
due to
올해도
the spread of Delta
전 세계가
variant, and despite
코로나19
the global
극복을 위해
efforts to
노력하고
overcome
있는
the
상황이라
situation,
부득이하게
unfortunately,
온라인으로
we are
행사를
holding
진행하게
online
되었습니다.
symposium this year once again.
코로나19 팬데믹의
The
장기화로
prolonged
인해
COVID-19 pandemic
어린이와 청소년들의
significantly
교육,
widened
독서
the gap in
환경에도
the educational
상당한
and reading
격차가 생겨나고
environment of
있습니다.
children and adolescents.
이러한 상황이
The
사회
situation
문제로
has
대두되었고
surfaced as one of the
관련
social
기관들이
issues,
문제
prompting
해결을 위해
related
머리를
organizations
맞대고
to work
고민을 하고
together
있습니다.
to solve the problem.
제
The
13회
theme of the
어린이
13th
청소년
International
도서관
Symposium
국제
on
심포지엄의
Library
주제를
Services for Children
책
and Young
읽는
Adults
나라의
is a
미래가
future
있다.
exists where people
미래를
read
만드는 도서관으로
libraries
정했습니다.
creating the future.
코로나19가 앞당긴
As
제4차
the era of
산업혁명
the fourth
시대에
industrial revolution
디지털
and the
시대가
digital
요구하는
era accelerated by
상위 융합형
COVID-19
인재 양성을 위한
requires and needs
해답
creative
중
convergent
하나는
talents. And I'm
책
strongly
읽기라고
convinced
생각합니다.
that reading is a key to nurture those
하지만
talents.
시대와 환경이
However,
변한 만큼
as the times and
우리
environment have
도서관에서도
rapidly advanced,
그 변화에
our
맞춰
libraries also need to
독서 진흥
revise its reading
정책을
promotion
수정해
policies
나가야 할 것으로
in line with it.
생각됩니다. 오늘 발표를
I would like
해주시는
to express my
아드리안
gratitude to presenters,
랑텐도크
including the
이프라
Netherlands
독서
Adrian
리터러시
Langendorf
본과장님을
Literacy and
비롯해
Reading Section of IFLA,
경인교육대학교
as well as
정현선
Professor
교수님,
Hyun-sun Jung from
미국
Kyungin
서던
National University of
캘리포니아
Education,
대학교
Professor
스티븐
Stephen Kresen
크라센
of the
교수님,
University of Southern California,
싱가포르
General Counsel Eric Chin of National Library Board of Singapore, and Mr. Tatu Salonen from Helsinki Central Library of Finland. I would also like to thank today's moderator, Professor Jin-Soo Chung of Deokseong University, who is here despite her busy schedule. As far as I know, the libraries of the National Library Board of Singapore are also participating via the YouTube channel. Thank you for participating from afar. Starting from this year, we have opened a YouTube channel in English for overseas librarians to participate. And I would like to thank everyone for their interest and participation. I hope that it will be a great opportunity for librarians from all over the world to contemplate and share their insights on the new library role demanded by our society. The National Library for Children and Young Adults will take the leading role in developing library services for children and youth. Thank you very much. I would also like to extend my gratitude to Director General Shin-ho Lee for his welcoming speech. We invited 5 experts, home and abroad, to today's symposium. Also, there will be also real-time Q&A sessions after the presentation of the National Library Board of Singapore and Helsinki Central Library OD of Finland. So if you have any question, please leave it in the live chat on YouTube. Also, please refer to the symposium material book posted under the symposium notice on the website of National Library. I would also like to ask for your understanding as we prepare recorded presentation of overseas presenters due to possible network issues and time difference, and simultaneous presentation will be provided.
이제 제13회 어린이 청소년 도서관
Now, let's start the first session of the 13th International Symposium of Libraries of Children and Young Adults. The topic of the keynote speech is Changes in Reading, Promotion, and Roles of Public Libraries of the Netherlands in Digital Era, which will be presented by Mr. Adrien Langendonk, Manager of the Reading Promotion Programs of the Reading Foundation and National Library Netherlands, KB. Mr. Adrien Langendonk have long worked for the publishers in the Netherlands, and now he is working for the KB and the Reading Foundation in the Netherlands, and working as a manager of the two major programs. Now, please watch the pre-recorded video of his presentation.
Dear attendees of this symposium, thank you for visiting the 13th International Symposium on Library Service for Children and Young Adults. Due to COVID, I am unfortunately not live in your midst. Instead, the organizers of the symposium have asked me to record a video to tell you about the promotion of reading in the Netherlands and the implementation of the Bookstart and the Library in School programs. My name is Adrien Langendonk. I'm the national manager of these two programs. I'm working for the Dutch Reading Foundation and the National Library KB. COVID has also ensured that we have partly started promoting reading online in the Netherlands. To illustrate this, I will shortly show 4 good Dutch examples of online reading promotion aimed at elementary school pupils. Internationally, Dutch elementary pupils don't like to read very much. Compared to peers from 50 other countries, 10-year-olds score low on reading attitude in the Pearl survey, which requires them to answer statements such as, I like reading, I learn a lot from reading, and I enjoy interacting with others to talk about what I've read. A quarter of Dutch primary school students enjoy reading, while this is more than 4 in 10 internationally. More than 3 in 10 primary school pupils do not enjoy reading, compared to 16% internationally. The Netherlands, together with the Scandinavian countries and Belgium, is one of the countries where children find reading the least enjoyable. The same goes for Dutch high school students. They don't like to read as well. They score low on the reading pleasure index in the PISA survey. This puts Dutch 15-year-olds at the bottom of both the international and European rankings. With the low reading pleasure, the Netherlands is in the company of neighboring countries like Belgium, Germany, the United Kingdom and the Scandinavian countries again. Reading pleasure has decreased significantly and meaningfully compared to 2009. Because of these bad reading results, we'll conclude that reading is not going well in the Netherlands, while good reading skills are a basic need for everyone. Significant investments and decisiveness are needed to offer everyone in the Netherlands equal opportunities. The Reading Coalition therefore sounded the alarm and makes an urgent appeal to the Education and Culture section of the Ministry of Education, Culture and Science to jointly arrive at an active and inclusive reading policy. We call this the Reading Offensive. The driving force behind this reading offensive is the Reading Coalition. In 2013, in the presence of Princess Laurentien, the Reading Coalition was established by Dutch reading promotion organizations and national library organizations. Reading enriches lives and opens doors. It's an absolute condition to participate in society. Without a basis of reading skills, reading books also decreases. With this in mind, the initiative was taken to collaborate in a reading coalition between the organizations that have a national task to fulfill in the field of language and reading promotion. They joined forces to encourage as many people as possible to read and read aloud. With the Library Covenant, the Dutch library system and the 3 tiers of government stipulate that they will jointly focus on reading promotion, digital inclusion and lifelong learning. Agreements have also been made to guarantee the future of the Dutch Library. In Dutch, the government action program to prevent and combat illiteracy is called Tel mee met taal. This is loosely translated as count on skills. An important part is the so-called family approach. With this approach, the focus is on reading activities in language-poor families in order to break the cycle of low literacy in these families. The programs Bookstart and Library in School are paid from this program. In this video, we show you how Dutch libraries are working with the Reading Offensive and the programs Bookstart and the Library in School.
Teaching children to read is one of the main goals of education. Reading promotional organizations such as the Dutch Reading Foundation and local libraries have been working for years with schools to increase the joy of reading for children and to make them better readers. Good readers know their way in a world of real news and fake news and can judge texts critically. Being a good reader enriches your life and is therefore a basic need. Unfortunately, international poll surveys such as PISA and PIRLS show that the reading skills of Dutch students are declining and that especially boys, students on vocational education and students with a migrant background lag behind. They can have insufficient reading skills to participate independently in society. The Dutch Reading Coalition is a partnership of national organizations for reading promotion and libraries. The aim of the Reading Coalition is to bring more cohesion in reading policy by means of a national reading offensive. The motto is, reading is for everyone. Investing heavily in a better reading education is now necessary and does not happen by itself. We as libraries are happy to participate in this reading offensive. According to the Reading Coalition, what is lacking is a sense of urgency and necessity to set really high ambitions together. Libraries in the Netherlands are working on a more effective national program for reading pleasure. With the Bookstart program, libraries work together with childcare and health centers so children start primary school without language deficiency. We do this by investing in language and reading aloud through early and preschool education and parent programs. With the Library at School program, reading consultants from Dutch libraries work together structurally with educational professionals. We provide a rich reading environment, an attractive school library, and a reading policy in which time for reading and talking about books are the basis. We make use of what we call the reading hunger model, which is based on everything that is known from research about reading goals, reading motivation, and successful reading promotion. Our programs are based on scientific research, and several Dutch universities are actively involved. We also ensure that teachers and teaching assistants are adequately equipped to provide students with more motivation to read. And we focus more and more on future teachers. Together with our stakeholders, libraries are ready to realize the necessary reading offensive. And how do we do that? Let's look at the initiatives of 2 libraries and schools north of Amsterdam. A way to encourage reading among young people is a reading offensive held at schools at sea in Den Helder. Students were allowed to choose the book of their choice in collaboration with the local library and bookstore. Just like many other Dutch libraries, the library in the city of Alkmaar is working together with their partners in education to stimulate reading pleasure and reading skills for young people up to 18 years old. The plans include structural reading time at school, the use of reading experts, and bringing books close to the children. The results are monitored through the years.
Well, the benefits for a school on working together with a library on a reading offensive is that we bring in the expertise of the reading consultant that's there for maybe 3 or 4 hours per week to work together with a team of the teachers. We bring in a measurement, a survey on which the team can measure how much joy of reading there is with the children, and we bring in a collection of books. And those 3 elements make that you have a very specific program on the joy of reading. I use the saying in Dutch, it says aardigheid en vaardigheid gaan hand in hand, which means as much as if you like what you're doing, you probably get good at it. And we can learn from our experience that when we enter a school with our reading consultant, usually within 2 or 3 weeks, we already see results that children, with the help of a reading consultant, find the right book and enjoy reading much more. And then in the end of a school year, they see that the results of all the subjects that they get at schools get better because they read better. It's a joint effort from the library and the school team. They all have to join in this reading offensive, and in best case scenario, even the parents or the grandparents are involved in making children to enjoy reading again or better or more.
The collaboration with the library gives us a lot of expertise about how children can enjoy reading. From the library we expect 2 things. First of all, of course, books. Many books for all ages. The other thing is innovation. They bring new ideas how to help children to enjoy reading. And those new things help teachers to continue it in their classroom as well.
The libraries in the Netherlands are ready to join with the schools for the reading offensive, because reading will make kids great.
Bookstart, the library in school, and a nationwide provision of reading promotion and literacy networks are the 3 program lines that are collectively known as the Art of Reading. This reading promotion program, initiated by the Ministry of OCW, has been in existence since 2008 and will run until 2024. Libraries work together with various local partners by setting up a strategic literacy reading promotion network centered around the library. The programs are more solidly embedded in local policy and easier to finance. This network involves local politicians, stakeholders from daycare centers, youth healthcare, cultural organizations, and educational institutions. In this short promotion video, we promote reading aloud to babies through the Bookstart program.
Op een dag zat Nijntje Pluis te spelen in het gras en opeens dacht Nijn, wat hoort mijn oor? En weet je wat het was? Een vliegtuig vloog er door de lucht. Kijk maar, dat zie je hier. En even later, toen ging Nijn de lucht in met haar oom. Hoi hoi, riep Nijn, wat gaat het fijn. Het lijkt wel of ik droom.
Bookstart is a program that aims to promote reading with children aged 0 till 4 years of age and parents with young children to enjoy books together. Reading a book together, pointing to pictures and telling stories strengthens the bond with your baby. And children who have been read to as a baby are better at language later on. So you can't start reading early enough. The National Bookstart program stimulates this. For parents who come to the library, there's a Bookstart for babies. There's Bookstart for babies. When parents make their baby a member of this library, they receive the Bookstart suitcase with 2 books and information about reading aloud to babies. In the COVID year 2020, about 56,500, 33% of the newborns have received a Bookstart suitcase. A decline from 2019 when 65,000 parents of newborns collected the suitcase. We hope for better times now the lockdown is over. Personal contact works best to inform parents as early as possible about the importance of reading to them. The Bookstart coach works on behalf of the library at the Children's Health Care Center and establishes contact with visiting parents. The Bookstart coach supports professionals in youth health care. The Bookstart coach will talk to language poor families about language skills and the importance of reading aloud. And she invites them to the library. Bookstart also works together with maternity care. This program is carried out by 46% of the 143 libraries in about 180 children's healthcare centers. Bookstart in childcare centers is intended to bring young children, their parents and childcare leaders intensively into contact with books and reading through childcare. The program is aimed at professionally working together as a library with the childcare. Attention to the expertise of the childcare leader in the field of reading promotion and books is of great importance, even if they are still in training. 85% of the libraries have implemented the approach at nearly 3,000 of the approximately 8,100 childcare centers in the Netherlands. The library in school encourages children and young people to read more. This is done with expert reading consultants from the library, with inspiring books and inviting digital reading environment. With the library in school education, the library and a municipality are joining forces and daily attention is paid to reading pleasure at school and at home. The library helps elementary schools, secondary schools and vocational education to achieve this goal. In this presentation we will focus on elementary schools. The library in school encourages sustainable cooperation for reading promotion between libraries and elementary schools. We provide an inviting reading environment at school with a varied and current collection in the school library. We measure the reading climate at school every year so that we can target reading promotion based on the results. We advise the school team about these goals and associated activities, and we increase the expertise of teachers through training courses on reading promotion. 90% of the libraries have implemented the approach at over 3,400 of the 6,500 elementary schools in the Netherlands. This means that nearly half of the schools are reached with the program. The combined programs reached nearly 920,000 children aged 0 to 12 in 2020. That's about 43% of the total population in this age group. The Reading Foundation has developed a continuous reading line 0 till 20 years, in which it has set out its vision with regard to reading promotion as a continuous stimulus for this age group. The continuous reading line is also intended to ensure that children do not experience difficulties when transferring from preschool to primary school or from primary to secondary school. The building blocks of the program derived from the pillars of the program's reading environment, evidence, expertise and collaboration. The Bookstart and the Library in School programs comprise 10 interconnected building blocks arranged in a PCDA, Plan, Do, Check, Act cycle. 7 of the building blocks are the joint responsibility of the school or the childcare center and the library. The remaining 3 blocks are the responsibility of the library alone. That is logistics, operation and marketing and communication. The school or childcare center concludes an agreement with the library. Against an agreed fee per child, which may differ per municipality, the school or the preschool acquires a library, trained staff, 2 to 4 hours professional support by a reading consultant from a library, a collection of 3 to 5 books per pupil, activities, etc. Beep2Beep is the digital knowledge and innovation platform of public libraries, a platform where you can acquire and impart knowledge, find people with a specific position or expertise, and collaborate in groups. The second part of this presentation is about the online reading promotion during Corona, focused on education in elementary schools. We have selected 4 Dutch examples developed to connect with children during the lockdown in the Netherlands. It is Writer on your screen, Beep Lab, Book a Trip and Beep Boys. We start now with Writer on your screen. The Writers Platform, in Dutch de Schrijverscentrale, is a Dutch institution that mediates in writers' performances in education, libraries, bookstores and festivals. It encourages encounters between writers and their audience, and thus ensures that stories and literature are visible and accessible to everyone. Its activities encourage cultural participation, have positive impact on talent development, and enhance the accessibility and visibility of literature. All of this leads to a more diverse cultural landscape. The author's visits create an atmosphere in which children and adults become better and more interested readers, and even get inspiration to become storytellers themselves. When the Netherlands went in lockdown in March 2020 due to COVID-19 and schools were closed, hundreds of schools visits by writers fell through. In less than a month, the Writers Platform introduced Writer on Your Screen, a platform to enable writers to continue their visits online. There are three forms of online performances. First of all, there's a personal video of 15 or 30 minutes in which the writer tells about themselves and his or her work. This is especially popular in schools. We encourage the teachers or librarians to prepare and send the writer some questions from the audience to make the video even more personal. We upload the video on your YouTube channel and send a hidden link to the organizer. The video will stay online for a limited amount of time to prevent that it will spread to other readers or schools who did not pay for the material. The second form is the most popular form, that's the live online visit. Children's books authors visit schools via Zoom or Microsoft Teams and are streamed on a digital school board. This is the most accurate replacement of a regular writer's visit, especially when it comes to school visits. Both authors and librarians and teachers emphasize the importance of interaction between the writer and the audience. Libraries organize interviews or book clubs in this form, but also seminars fall under this category. The third form is Writer Reads to You, and that's a project in cooperation with the Dutch National Library. We offer a subscription of 5 videos per week in which 5 authors read from their work to the library's audience. Since the start of Writer at Your Screen, a fourth type has emerged. The writer or illustrator travels to the library or another location where he or she gives a lecture or is interviewed. The organizer records the performance and streams it to the audience. As may be expected, not everyone was on board right away. As the Writers Platform, our goal to make sure that our authors' performance goes as smoothly as possible, either offline or online. For the authors, we organized masterclasses held by writers who were already more experienced in online performances and were able to exchange the tips and tricks that are important to writers and illustrators. We started out with masterclasses right before the National Children's Book Week, annually in October, and quickly followed up with masterclasses for the rest of our authors. It was interesting to see that librarians were the ones that were the first to experience with online possibilities. On the other hand, there were also many librarians that were a little bit scared to try out new stuff and would rather wait until the pandemic is over to organize regular events again. For them, we held a seminar to inspire them and show them how simple an online performance can be. We now show you some examples of Writer at Your Screen. When libraries and schools were temporarily closed during the lockdown, great initiatives have arisen to stay connected digitally with children. One of the examples are the videos of BiBLab, developed by Biblionet Groningen, which is in the north of the Netherlands. BiBLab consists of 3 types of videos on different social media platforms. First of all, there are videos on TikTok. With over 5.7 million views and 20,000 followers, BiBLab is a huge success. Thousands of people watch riddles, funny sketches and recognizable situations in the library. Then you have the online events on YouTube. Game events such as Fortnite and Among Us, Minecraft and Lego challenges, and the best Kahoot quizzes. The third line is the look behind the scenes on Instagram. Funny selfies, bonus videos and behind the scene photos. You see 2 enthusiastic members of the Beep Lab team have made a video especially for this lecture. The woman in the video is Jolanda Robbe. Because of these kinds of initiatives, she was elected Best Librarian of the Netherlands 2018-2019. Enjoy the video.
Ja, welkom allemaal. Tof dat je weer kijkt naar een nieuwe aflevering van Beep Lab.
Dit zijn niet de kinderen in Nederland die kijken.
Wat?
Ja, dit is Korea.
Korea?
Hallo? Het Koreaans is bij ons nog niet helemaal. Maar
Nee.
Beep Lab gaat internationaal, Jeroen.
We gaan internationaal?
Ja, ze willen heel graag weten wat wij doen, hoe we het doen. Ja, en wat het een beetje oplevert.
Oké, waar is de koffer?
Nee. We gaan niet naar Korea. Wij sturen een filmpje op.
Ja?
Eigenlijk gewoon online, zoals we de afgelopen 1,5 jaar al aan het doen zijn met Beep Lab.
Precies.
Kunnen we ook nu doen met deze video.
Dus we daar een beetje een beeld krijgen van wat wij hier doen?
Precies.
Klopt dat?
Beep Lab is een jeugdplatform voor kinderen. Het is begonnen in deze bibliotheek, waar we nu staan. Henkie was er al bij in die tijd. We hadden heel veel activiteiten in de bibliotheek, maar we wilden ook kinderen en jongeren online ontmoeten. En daarom zijn we met een platform begonnen, Beep Lab. Jij wilde heel graag op YouTube.
Ik wilde YouTuber worden.
Jij wil een grote ster worden. Ja. Dus we hebben een YouTube-kanaal aangemaakt. En tijdens corona hebben we dat natuurlijk extra veel gebruikt.
Ja.
Hebben we heel veel ook live-uitzendingen gemaakt. We zijn gaan gamen met de kinderen online. We hebben dingen met ze gemaakt. En we hebben iedere vakantie een
Minecraft challenge.
Precies. En deze vakantie hebben we dat ook gedaan. En dat zag er ongeveer zo uit.
Hallo en welkom in ons vakantiepark van de Beep Lab. Ik ben Robin.
Ik ben Lian.
En ik ben Niek.
Dit waren Robin, Liam en Niek.
Ongelooflijk.
15 tot 17 jaar waren ze. Ze hebben een ongelooflijk mooi vakantiepark gemaakt. Waar we natuurlijk heel veel van dat soort inzendingen. En Jeroen, jij vond YouTube nog niet genoeg.
TikTok!
Precies, wij zijn actief op TikTok. We zitten ongeveer tegen de 20.000 volgers aan. Misschien op het moment dat deze video bekeken wordt, zitten we er al op.
Ja, 6 miljoen weergaves bijna.
Bijna 6 miljoen weergaves. En heel veel kinderen en jongeren die ontmoeten ons dus op TikTok.
Ja.
En het best bekeken filmpje, weet jij hem?
Het zal ongetwijfeld een raadsel zijn.
Ja, we doen heel veel raadsels, grappige situaties uit de bibliotheek, woordgrappen. Maar de best bekeken video was de video met de 3 streepjes.
Oh ja.
Oké, Jeroen, er ligt weer een raadsel voor je.
Het zijn 3 streepjes.
Ja, de bedoeling is dat jij dezelfde 3 streepjes gaat zetten, maar let op, je mag de stift niet van het papier halen. Ga je gang.
Maar ik mag wel de stift oppakken.
Ja, je mag natuurlijk de stift gebruiken.
Dezelfde streepjes.
Je moet 3 strepen maken zonder dat je de stift uiteindelijk van het papier. Die moet op gewoon in 1 beweging.
Ja.
En de komende maanden en misschien het komende jaar gaan we ons bezighouden om Beep Lab ook weer in de bibliotheek te laten plaatsvinden. En zo gaan we bijvoorbeeld een escape room bouwen rondom een boek. Kinderen moeten dit boek gelezen hebben en in de escape room moeten ze vervolgens allerlei opdrachten gaan doen. En uiteindelijk, Jeroen, willen we er naartoe dat het team van Beep Lab, wij zijn met z'n tweeën.
Ja, en wij zijn best wel groot en oud.
Dankjewel.
Ik praat even voor mezelf. Ik ben best oud en groot. Maar ja, wij willen natuurlijk leuke dingen bedenken voor kinderen. Maar niet alleen voor kinderen, maar vooral ook met kinderen.
Dus kinderen kunnen uiteindelijk ook gewoon lid worden van Team Beep Lab.
Ja, hoor.
Dat doen ze door ons te helpen. Bijvoorbeeld zoals Albert-Jan, die met ons met
Minecraft
Fortnite,
server,
Minecraft. Maar ook bijvoorbeeld door workshops te geven. En dat is bijvoorbeeld Koen geweest, die met fotografie heeft gedaan. En zo kan je lid worden van Beep Lab, online, offline. Ja, je kan niet om ons heen.
Ik hoop het.
Ja, misschien kunnen we in Zuid-Korea ook nog met Beep Lab beginnen.
Ik ga Guus Hiddink even bellen.
Kijk, gaan we dat doen.
Kom voor de bakken.
Beep
Labse.
The second initiative we want to show to you is the Book and Trip. Book a Trip in English. It is a summer campaign of jeugdbibliotheek.nl. You can experience the most beautiful stories during the summer campaign of jeugdbibliotheek.nl, youthlibrary.nl, just on your phone or tablet. With the free online library app, you can download 10 ebooks and 10 audiobooks for everyone between 0 and 18 years of age, even if you are not a member of the library. With the Youth Library, the National Library KB offers a digital lending platform to promote reading and digital literacy skills. We want to help young people find a suitable book or information quickly and easily online from one place, for home and school. We focus on digital content, and if it's not available, we refer to the physical library. You can borrow the digital and audio books from the online library. The collection of the online library contains approximately 5,000 ebooks, audiobooks for children. This collection is still growing steadily. Thanks to the one copy multiple user system, one digital title can be read by several library members at the same time. The third line we want to show you is Beep Boys. As a result of the restrictions during Corona, the three initiators, librarians of the Beep Boys, this is an initiative from the Gelderland South Library, have encouraged to address children in an original, funny and innovative way. On the first day of the lockdown in 2020, Petra, Joran and Kees wrote and filmed for the Beep Boys project. From an empty library, they start recording videos about books, reading and the library with super cool challenges for children from 6 years old. Their videos and teaching materials are widely shared, also outside their own work area. Other libraries are given the opportunity to use the material on the Beep Boys in their region as well. The three are a well-oiled machine among themselves. They join forces and draw colleagues along in their enthusiasm. There is collaboration with colleagues from different backgrounds in book knowledge as well as reading promotion and educational experience. In addition, the Beep Boys work outside the library with new parties, cultural institutions and education. And very important, their collaboration with children. Thinking and developing things together with them makes this initiative a huge success. The great thing is that the Beep Boys have turned an emergency solution into a rock-solid product that not only makes the target group happy, but also schools. Every month the Beep Boys make a teaching package for elementary schools on reading promotion or digital literacy. This is called Beep Boys in the Classroom. In happy and crazy videos, they challenge children to do challenges related to books and reading. There's a lesson letter and additional teaching materials for the teachers. This summer, the Beep Boys are encouraging students to also be busy with books and reading during the summer holidays. For the big Beep Boys Summer Challenge, students receive a poster with reading challenges. The Beep Boy team, Joran, Kees and Petra of the Gelderland South Library, can call themselves MBD Youth Specialist of the Year 2021. Out of 57 applications, the Beep Boys were chosen as the winner.
Wil jij aan de slag met mediawijsheid, leesplezier, boekverwerking, leesmotivatie, informatievaardigheden en boekensmaak?
Doe dan met ons mee!
Wij zijn de Beep Boys! Wij zijn de Beep Boys! Wij zijn de Beep Boys!
Wij zijn de Beep Boys!
Ik ben Joran.
Ja, en ik ben Kees. En wij maken iedere maand een gratis lespakket voor jouw klas.
Met een lesbrief,
digitaal materiaal, het prachtig boekenspel,
de mediawijsheid quiz, de grote Beep Boys vakantie challenge en een te gekke aflevering. Ah, sorry.
Wat wil jij nog doen?
Wil jij de Beep Boys in jouw klas? Ga dan naar obgz.nl/Beep Boys in de klas.
Jongens! Voor de laatste keer!
Shabam!
네, 아드리안 랑겐동크님 멀리 네덜란드에서 영상으로 생동감 있는 독서지능 프로그램을 나누어 주셨습니다. 진심으로 감사드립니다. 다음으로 발표하실 정현선 교수님은 경인교육대학교 국어교육과 교수이자 미디어교육 전문가이십니다. 영국 런던대학교 교육연구대학원에서 저명한 미디어 교육 전문가인 데이비드 버킹엄 교수의 지도로 박사학위를 받으셨고요. 한국언론진흥재단, 방송통신위원회, 한국콘텐츠진흥원 등에서 미디어 교육, 신문이해 교육, 뉴스 리터러시 교육, 게임 교육 등과 관련하여 초중등학교 학생용 교재와 교사용 지도서를 개발하셨습니다. 또한 세상을 바꾸는 시간 15분이라는 세바시 강연에서 부모가 알아야 할 디지털 육아법이라는 주제로 강연을 하면서 주목도 받으셨습니다. 이번에 정현선 교수님께서 변화하는 미디어 환경의 어린이 독서와 디지털 리터러시를 주제로 발표해 주시겠습니다.
네, 안녕하세요. 오늘 이렇게 의미 있는 심포지엄에 발표자로 초대해 주셔서 대단히 감사합니다. 행사를 준비하신 이신호 국립어린이청소년도서관장님을 비롯한 관계자 여러분의 노고에도 감사드립니다. 앞서 네덜란드의 발표를 저도 앉아서 같이 보았는데요. 여러 가지 다양한 프로그램들을 보여주셨는데 아주 인상적이었습니다. 제 발표는 제가 재직하고 있는 경인교대 도서관의 사례에 초점을 둔 작은 사례이지만 왜 이런 노력을 기울였는가에 대해서는 서로 생각이 통한다는 생각이 들어서 매우 반가웠습니다.
And I believe we are on the same page regarding this reading environment of the children. And because of the prolonged pandemic situations, it has widened gap in children's reading environment as well as the education environment. In order to nurture our children to have appropriate reading environment, we have to have appropriate children's book, and without any social restrictions, they can have the easy access to the children. And I believe that is the important role of the schools and the libraries. And also we have to bring our children to into the library so we can create the culture in which the children can encounter with the books. That's the role of the parents, and I believe that we have to have qualified books. And that's the role of the libraries. And we have to share our thoughts regarding the book, and that's the culture that we have to create with other children. However, unfortunately, because of the prolonged pandemics, they have to be isolated because of the quarantine or the shutdown policies. So the roles of the school and the school library and the public library were contracted. We are witnessing the prolongation of the pandemic in the Korean society. We are watching and witnessing a new habit, which is reading. Actually, the e-book terminal equipment or the PC or the tablets are enjoying the increase in the revenues. And when you take a look at other online platforms, the 2020 revenues increased dramatically compared to the previous years. Also, there was a restriction in the use of the libraries. It became really difficult for children to borrow the books, and because of the concerns regarding the virus infections, people tend to purchase more books, and they tend to have more audiobooks. Students cannot go to the school, and they have to have the remote class, and the parents are buying more books for them. However, against this backdrop of the pandemics, the reading became one of the important hobbies of the families. However, not many parents are capable of reading books to the children. This is the reason why the gap has been widened in the reading environment of the children. So according to the National Reading Survey 2019, we asked a question of how often did your parents read your picture books when you're young. And if more parents can read a book, they can have a better reading habit. Also, according to this survey, children use this information, And most of them are checking their books firsthand at a bookstore or the libraries. And also, they purchase the books for themselves and borrow a lot from school libraries. And also, they tend to leave something from at home. It means that the parents or the caregivers have to create this environment for the children to select a book for themselves. And also, the students want the recommendations for the books, and they want their parents to buy more books. And these are the things that we have to keep in mind. Against such dramatic change in this environment, we have to think about the digital literacy from the perspective of the digital inclusion. We have to think about the widening gap in terms of digital literacy and the reading environment of the children. Digital environment has been rapidly advancing and expanding, so a variety of the information and communication skills are encompassed. We have to get some information from the books, and we have to adapt to the digital environment, and we have to have the access to read a book. And this has been accelerated by the pandemic, but it is very difficult to predict when it is going to be ended. So the digital device possession or the typing skills or the software utilization skills are contributing to widening gaps of the reading environment of children, and that is caused by the wealth or the house incomes of the parents. Reading environment, culture, and the skills may be further deepened because of these situations. In the March of 2021, the United Nations Child Rights Committee released the General Comment Number 25 on children's rights in relation to the digital environment. And also at the United Nations Child Rights Committee as the right to life, survival, and development of children to guarantee the opportunity that is provided by the digital environment, and in order to enable the use of digital technology without having any harmful influence on the cognitive, emotional, and social development of the children. It recommended that the appropriate training and advices must be provided to the parents and the assistants so that the teacher education must be carried out. So in order to have further discussions, I would like to introduce, amid the COVID-19 situations, the case studies or the programs that we had at our university. And also, we would like to introduce the Read, Make, Share, the literacy reading program. And we'd like to touch upon how we implemented it. This program was developed by the professors, the school librarians, and the undergrad students, and also elementary school students, and the special classes participated in. And we have been discussing the outcome of this program. And against this backdrop of the social distancing, there has been a great change in terms of the media environment. And we would like to emphasize the fact that how these both have to be strike the balance, and how the public libraries and the school libraries can cooperate in order to support their parents in terms of creating the reading environment for their children. Well, actually, I believe there are some people talking behind. You're distracting me, so please. And also, we have to have the discussion from the digital inclusion perspective. And also, from the 2018, we have been running the Children Library Program projects to support the community. And at the beginning of the 2020, we shelved 1,100 bags on the campus, well, actually, first floor of the campus, which is the called Children Libraries Corner. And the Read, Make, Share program was also created after that. It was one of the programs that we carried out. It was for the grade 4 to grade 6 students. It is a digital literacy program connected or linked to the reading environment. Before the COVID-19 situations, we carried out many programs that were connected to our local community, and it was a way for us to invite the young children and read a book. And also, we completed the Children's Library Program project under 2020, and we expected to have this program as a part of these program projects. However, because of the COVID-19 situations, it was impossible to operate and open the libraries of the university. So that is the reason why we couldn't carry out the program and have the program with the children on site. So this is the reason why we have to ponder what we are going to do in consideration of the possibility that the pandemic will never end. And we are thinking whether we are going to have in small groups or we are going to have this program at schools. Or we were thinking about creating this website so everyone can participate in online. And maybe we can, these were the three options that we considered. And then, as of the December of the 2020, COVID-19 situations got worsened. So the students couldn't go to the schools, and all of them had a remote program, so we couldn't invite our children to the university. And we couldn't go to each school to carry out this program. So these are the people who created and developed this program. I am on the left side, and there is a school librarian and the graduate students. Of course, elementary school students participate in this program. And because of the unpredictable situation of the COVID-19 situation, and this accelerated this environment changes, children, parents, teachers, and librarians got interested in the program. And we tried to make this program to be beneficial for these possible users in order to encourage the reading environment, our habits, and so it became really difficult for the teachers to teach reading habits to the children on site. And we provide a training for these teachers. And in the process of developing this program, one of the developers, the school librarians, worked at the Gyeonggi Library University online meetings. And this is where we got a variety of the informations and demands. And also we asked a continuous advisory from this meeting. And as a result, there were some people who participated in this process of development, and there was a great interest. So we picked 3 elementary school classes and 1 special classes. So we carried out this project for 4 different classes. So this program consists of the Read and Podcast and Read and Bookstore. These 2 programs are the sub-programs offered on the website of Read, Make, and Share. Everybody can access to it. I believe that if you Google it, you can have easy access to the materials on the website. And I would like to introduce this podcast producing app, Anchor. It is very easy for children to use. The Anchor is available for the iOS and Android. And you can use it on the tablet PC as well. And you can use it via the web browser. It is very easy and convenient podcast producing tool. So with the Anchor, students can record their voices. And they can also use the sounds of the map in order to avoid any copyright issues. And also including Spotify, they can use a variety of the podcast platforms, and they can share these outcomes on any other platforms. Bookstagram. Well, actually, it consists of the words book and star. And actually, it resembles the social networking service Instagram. So it emphasizes the function of the sharings. So it means that you can post your book reports and then you can be a star. And this is available for the people over 14, so they can use it directly. So students have to download the template first, and they can share it via Padlet. So with the social networking services of the elementary school students, they can satisfy their needs for the social networking services, and it is a very safe way for them to share their ideas. And also, we fully explain this to the students. These are the examples of the podcast and the bookstagrams on the Padlet. And they don't need to log in order to share these. So this is widely used in the elementary schools. And this is the bookstagrams shared on the Padlets. We hope that children would use the online resources for reading and digital literacy activities with their parents, teachers, or librarians in their homes, classrooms, or libraries. The Read, Make, Share program development and progress, and the most important thing is that amid the COVID-19 situations among the various books, we would like to offer children to pick the book for them, and that is a part of the goal of the book curations. So children can choose what they want and they can read it, and they can share and express what they think after reading this book. And that was the aim of our program. So you can share these experiences, and everyone can use it despite the places where they are. For example, they can do it at home, they can do it at school. So we chose a theme which is very meaningful, the coexistence. So we made the sub-themes of live together with animals, the earth, and the neighbors. And we provided a curation under these three themes. And also, we chose the books from the Children's Library Program project that is appropriate for the children and to attract the children's interest. And also, we got the recommendations from the National Library for Children and Young Adults under the guidance of the librarians of schools, so that the children can maintain their interest and widen their choices of the books they can read. For the book curations, we introduce a list of the books, and we also show them the source of the book cover. And also we introduce the list of the questions so they can consider while they are reading a book, and they can comprehend the book further. And let us read a book, and podcast allows the children to share what they think after reading a book with their voices. Live with animals, live with the earth, and live with the neighbors. These are the three themes that we provided. Picture books and books, and they can use the Anchor applications in order to produce the podcast, and they can share the outcome via the Padlets. And by doing so, they can have media production as well as that they can read a book, and it is a great opportunity for them to communicate with other peers or other students with their voices amid the situation of the COVID-19. And also they can participate in the communications and conversations with other people. Well, actually, this was one special class podcast under the title of a co-coordinator. If you have time, please listen to this later. So digital literacy was really linked to the reading environment or reading activity to us when we are developing these programs. But we try to avoid the real name of the children when we share these ideas. We ask them to create another separate ID in order to do that. And when they record their voices on the podcast, we ask them not to use their real names in order to protect their privacy. That is the important part of digital literacy. The technology is important, however, privacy is really important as well in terms of digital literacy. They can understand this and exercise it. That's the goal of our program as well. And on the online environment, children have to protect their names properly, and they can share their experiences safely. So people participated in the reading programs, and most of them are including the book reports or other traditional reading activities. And the education related to the reading is mostly focused on the writing. So book report is one good example. So the negative experience of children from these kind of programs made it very difficult for them to have the reading habit when they grow old. So some people even say that we have to get rid of the book reports. However, these old traditional programs have been rooted in the educational system of our societies. So we use the simple app in order to encourage the podcast production of our children, so they can get a little bit further, or they can escape from writing a book report. It is a new media literacy activity they can do it. And also we taught them how to write a transcript or script and record. And also they can do it with other children, or they can do it with other teams. So with the help from the teachers or the parents or other students. When you like to use the app, you have to join. And also they have to remember their emails and passwords. And also in order to share their outcomes on the podcast, they have to have the email authentications. And also they can click the share podcast in order to share the link addresses via Padlets. And when we developed this program, there was no guidance in Korean on how to use Anchor. So when we implemented this program, we provided guidance in Korean, and we posted it on the website as well.
The reading books and Bookstar is like that. Reading books and Podstars. We selected various picture books and children's books and informative books, and children choose one of those books and express their ideas and feelings and share it with others. And the book reading and podcast is including the media production, but the reading books and Bookstar engages students in writing their feelings on paper. It is similar to the existing type of reading activities. And Bookstar uses the worksheet that reminds of the Instagram. And after reading books, they wrote down on the Bookstagram and they picture it and upload it on the website. It is a simplified version of the reading activities. And this is what I made with my child. The bookstagrams or outcomes are as follows. I will skip this part. Children paint what they have in their mind after reading books. This is quite similar to the existing reading books activities, but it used the hashtag function that is used in social media. So the writers and the keywords and the main ideas of the books are shared, and it is a short story that children write down after reading books. It is quite similar to the expressions that the children use in social media by considering the characteristics of digital media compared to podcast. It is appropriate for children who lack digital literacy. The guidance and examples of bookstagram worksheets is uploaded on the website, and children use the bookstagram worksheet and picture it and upload it and then share it with teachers and parents, and other children can easily follow the guidance. And this is the aim of our project. And the project development team composed of professors, librarian, teachers, and the student teachers put comments on the bookstagrams that children made. And these projects were developed in partnership with civil society, so elementary schools, students in 5th and 6th grades in a school near our university participate in this program. And the undergrad students led the projects, and the assistants were called for to participate in the program. And the team visited a program, and they drew the plan in December. But right before the initiation of the project, the COVID-19 cases increased in the region. So all schools were closed in the capital areas. So it was difficult for elementary schools to continue with the project. So they canceled the participation in the program. This is what we have prepared. But they were not used by the elementary schools nearby our university. But in the process of making projects, we referred to the ideas of the elementary school teachers and librarian teachers. We worked with them and applied the inputs from them to our projects. And we shared the guidance of the project, and later we called for the participants. And 3 schools applied for it, and they implemented the projects on their own. And not the teacher librarian, but other students in a special school applied for the participating in our project. So in total, 4 schools participated in the project. And these schools received the official letter from our university, and then we notified the approval of their participation. So we were smoothly operating the project with those 4 schools. And those 4 schools were provided with the news cards and other education materials. So each student in the schools have received these educational materials, and online was used to share all the activities that students were participating in the projects. So why do we do that? The teacher librarian were interested in the project because in the past year, the school activities were not performed well. And in discussing the project development, these teacher librarians were participating in the planning phase. So applying this program in their schools were the hot topic for them. But in the first semester in 2020, all schools were almost closed, and in the second semester, libraries in schools were partly continuing their activities. So they lent books for students who made reservation in advance. And the teacher librarian who were interested in this project were expecting high from the podcast project. But when we started the podcast project, because of the rising cases of the COVID-19, and all schools were almost closed, and also they were able to lend books only for the reserved books made by the students. So as we implement the project, the 100% distant education was performed. So discussing and sharing the book activities and through the apps and the online platforms were not implemented smoothly as we expected. If they were able to hold these gatherings with children, then they should have better outcome. But it was very difficult to continue with this program because we cannot meet the children in person. So we created an additional online platform to respond to children's questions, and we helped children who find it difficult to upload their outcomes online. So the teachers and we sent a guide to them on how to use it via email. To lend books, children visited schools, and the librarian teachers simply shared the guide of the projects with the visiting children and parents. And how to effectively implement this project is the question for us. The special education was performed as usual during the COVID-19, so children were able to actively participate in this program, reading, making, and sharing. So this program was conducted in a very difficult and challenging condition, but we were able to have the 57 bookstagram and 41 podcast results. The reading activities in Korea were mainly focused on writing a book report after reading books. So in special schools were in difficult situation to promote reading with the children with special needs. So reading repeatedly books is meaningful for not just this children with special needs, but every students. But the existing pattern of reading promotion activity does not change. So we need to develop various reading activities that can meet the needs of different demands of schools. That is why we applied this program to special schools. Luckily, amid COVID-19, the special schools have small size classes, so they were able to attend the class in person. So the special education class, the teachers used the podcast program and bookstagram program with their children. In these classes, they created podcast channels, and those who want to create podcast channel with other children, they created them with teachers. And if the student wants to do it alone, then teacher just helps him or her to make it. And this is the one of the teachers who participated in the program. I covered her face. The children were very attentive to their voices when voices were streaming online, and they were very proud of what they did, and they were very happy and satisfied. And as we look at those happy faces, teachers converted these to the voices, and this simple change in the reading activity can create such a positive impact on children. So we believe that these types of reading activities can be a good triggering point for promote readings. So teachers asked the children what was the most good thing about the podcast, and they said that they can do it repeatedly until they got a good one. Recently, the digital education is drawing attention, and under the circumstances, the podcast creation can be used to be linked to the reading activities, and that would help the children with low literacy level and with special needs who can have more interest in reading. The simple digital technology can be utilized to have a great impact on children. And what we did was a good example of this. In order to increase the interest in reading books, we need to make a distinction between reading and the joy in reading. Podcast requires the careful guide of teachers, but a simple guide can help children make a difference. With the guide from teachers, a child with a ID curry, because she likes the curry, created podcast, and later she created 2 bookstagram after reading books. And this is what the children created. They pictured this after reading some books. The outcome of reading activities are shared online, and this lead to recommend the books to other children. And we did this in a safe way to protect their privacy, and it was another important education point. With the increasing practices of sharing their own personal information, we need to think about how to do it safely. And these digital literacy activities that we developed had drawn a lot of interest and support from parents and children as well. And the podcast and the Instagram should be used cautiously in order to protect their privacy. So we make sure the ID of children are not exposed, because that might lead to the harm to their interest. In order to protect children from danger and to make a digital platform enjoyed by children safely, so we refer to the 25th, the UN recommendation on children's protection. So beyond the reading activities, digital literacies were considered by us when we developed this project. When it comes to digital literacy and reading activities, the one-on-one interaction between a child and the librarian is important to help children interested in books and choose books what they want and organize their feelings and thoughts. The role of librarian and teachers are very important. And this project shows the importance of that. The program was not participated by more children because the reading together and the borrowing books and the reading activities could not be performed well due to the COVID-19. We shared information about this project with children online, and how can we help children in a practical way should be considered. And let me make a discussion and recommendations. So we need to link multiliteracy and the digital literacy. The multiliteracy focus on what drives production and distribution of meanings that are effective in social context. The concept goes beyond the restrictions to printed media of designing meanings. Rather, it concerns the interaction of literacies that manifest in various media skills. Students use literacies to interpret and reflect on meanings to become designer and constructor of meanings in the future. So it is a theoretical concept that comes up with multiple definitions of literacy. It has a more than 25 years of history in terms of theory, but still, when it comes to practice, we have a long way to go. Picture books are the results of social construction of meanings created in specific situations and context with languages and codes. Picture books are the prime examples of multiliteracies, which include multiple resources of dialogues to send messages. Nevertheless, schools still favor language literacy and writing and traditional literacy methods. Cartoons, educational cartoons, illustrations do not suffice to be books, which should not be dealt in book reports. But in the pandemic situation, libraries feel an urgent need to use digital technologies to offer distance learning and e-books and audiobooks that have been the domain of traditional reading. How can we make children enjoy reading and find it meaningful and accessible? How do schools, teachers, librarians, and parents make consensus on reading activities from multiliteracy's perspective? We need to admit the changing literacy landscape and connect the traditional literacy and digital literacy. From the multiliteracy perspective, connecting the two literacies as shared resources, teachers, librarians, and parents need to change their perspectives and make plan. Too much emphasis on traditional style reading and activities may exacerbate the reading gap among children. Secondly, I want to talk about the research on connected learning and tasks ahead. The reason that we paid more interest to special education class is that teachers and children met person to person and connect reading activities and digital literacy as resources. In the process, children showed a possibility that they can enjoy more in reading and sharing their thoughts and discover their potentials. We were able to discover the children's interest in reading and create a network of people to support them and connect them to a wider society. So we need to research and practice on these connected learning. And for that, the civic communities and digital media should be working together. And as we conducted interview, we thought about the necessity of linking the libraries and the university's libraries. One cannot do it on its own. The universities are very passionate about this, and we received a good response from primary schools. In the U.S., many researchers came up with this good idea of connected learning. To support the successful learning, development, social participation of young adults, context, and shared culture of the group that they belong to, and their social relationship to the groups and social networks are necessary. To create those opportunities, social media and digital media are playing an important role in increasing accessibility from different backgrounds of children to learning. Therefore, we need to develop and use digital technologies for children and young adults' learning and opportunities. I don't have enough time to read it all. The capacity of linking digital literacy and the traditional literacy requires the careful coaching in order to destroy the barriers between the two that hampered the conversion of the two. There is a very wonderful space in the U.S. This is for the equal education for children between the 0 to 14. This education center was established right before the COVID-19. I visited this center and talked to the staff members. And recently, this place could have been empty. So when I visited this center, the children between 2 and 10 were participating in online activities through Zoom or the outreaching programs like visiting family program were offered by this center. So likewise, I thought that the human network was working for digital network. Finally, the children's reading and digital literacy are the main domain where the university libraries and public libraries can work together. With a strong social distance measure in place, small-scale one-on-one coaching is desperately called for. And we realize the importance of this due to the COVID-19. It has always needed to reduce the gap between the home and school. The digital space is becoming significant. Using digital technologies, the contextualized setting can be provided, and digital inclusive policy for children should be established. Without digital technology, access to reading may decline, because there will be second or third COVID pandemic. To support the schools, university libraries, and public libraries take action and formulate a policy. Thank you for listening. Thank you very much. The Korean society is digitalized, and the reading and digital literacies were presented with insights of Professor. Now we will have 10-minute Q&A session.
So I'm going to read the questions posted on the live chat of the YouTube. The first question was left by Chang Jae-hyun. The Bookstagram application development. Well, I have a question regarding this. In fact, after carrying out the program, the participating libraries and the special class teachers, and I had a meeting on the evaluation of the program. And there was some demands on making Bookstagram applications. Well, actually, middle school students and high school students find it very easy to make the applications. And there were some suggestions that the students of the university can develop these applications. I thought it is a great idea. So actually, we asked the professor in the computer science and many other professors, but we came to this conclusion that we can have a test runs of the applications, but the continuous management of this application seems very difficult because of the server issues. Well, actually, server has to deal with a lot of the data that will be updated by the children, and there might be some bug that can be fixed by the engineers. So we need engineers in order to fix those bugs. So when I asked this question to the professor in the computer science, and if we want to, well, I think it will be better for us to have the websites that can be operated on the smartphones. So we can create the interface that is quite similar to running blogs. I think that might be a good alternative. And maybe startups can make it, or we can develop applications, but it may be very difficult to manage the data on the applications and the application itself. So I believe that if you're interested in National Library for Children and Young Adults, I think we can have further collaborations. And if any other company which is interested in that, we can cooperate. However, it is a very difficult job for one individual or one organization to handle. Thank you for your good question. So I believe this is related to the next question.
The YS put up this question that after the production, the files of podcasts should be maintained. How do you manage them? Now, there aren't many of those files yet. So when you access the website, you can see the link that you can see the outcomes of the podcast. And this is the website of our university. We used Google, and I used the Google and there is a link, and I use the Padlet, and Padlet itself is used for free, so there isn't big issue when it comes to the size of the files. The children use their pseudonym because they uploaded their own works. So the project was started as part of our university's policy. So we received the consent to use the sites when their children participate in this program. The children whose parents may find it difficult to consent to it, we contacted the parents who approached us, and we created the additional Padlet homepage. They just access to it without sharing their content by using our Google site. This again is accessible to children and it will stay there. So I think it's okay to maintain these files, and because we use the pseudonyms and you can see them on our websites.
Professor Zhang, thank you for your presentations and the Q&A sessions. Thank you very much. Well, we will have the next presentation. The next presenter is Professor Stephen Cresson, who received his PhD in 1972 in the Linguistic Department of the University of California and has since been a professor of education at the University of Southern California. As a world-renowned linguist, he has presented a variety of research materials related to the acquisition of a second language. His book, I think it is really famous, The Power of Reading, was also translated in Korean and got published here. And it has been one of the most influential standard authority books. Please allow me to introduce Professor Stephen Cresson of Education's University of Southern California of the USA for the presentation under the theme of developing competence in a second language through reading fiction.
Hello, everybody. My name is Stephen Cresson, and I'm here to tell you a little bit about language acquisition. And I want to introduce my helper tonight. My technician, is Sydney Glasser, and her true identity is that she's my granddaughter. So this is Sydney. Okay. I couldn't do this without her. I want to first talk about science and a little bit of philosophy of science. We have been very influenced by one man, and his influence has been very good, but it has to be changed a little bit. His name is Karl Popper. And Karl Popper said, this is how you do science. He lived quite a while ago. He said, what you do is you make a hypothesis, and a hypothesis is simply what you think might be right. It's not necessarily the truth. And then what you do is you try to show the hypothesis is right. I say all languages in the world have pronouns. That's a universal. And I've looked at all the languages of the world. 6,500 languages. Actually, I found that on Wikipedia. I don't know if it's right. And they all have pronouns. Have I proven that pronouns are a universal? No. You can always say, well, what about someday a language might develop that doesn't have pronouns? And then some critic says, are you sure you've looked at all of them? Maybe there's a strange language somewhere that doesn't. So it's still a hypothesis. And you can make your whole career if you have a universal like this. Let's say I've done this. I have the hypothesis that all languages have pronouns, and I become very famous. And when I walk down the hall at a conference, people say, there goes the pronoun man. And then it happens. 2 graduate students find a little island where there are 4,000 people, that's all, and they find 2 people there who speak the language, which is dying. 2 people all over the age of 90. Guess what? No pronouns. It's what we call a counterexample. What happens to my hypothesis? It's disproven. One counterexample is enough to disprove a hypothesis. And then my career is ruined. Say, see, he was wrong. He should have known. How could he have been so stupid, etc. Well, Albert Einstein knew about this. You remember him, theory of relativity. And Einstein said, no amount of experimentation can ever prove me right. A single experiment can prove me wrong. Science is a dangerous game. Well, I think the Karl Popper approach is useful, it's valid, it's correct, but it's not the only way to do science. Ralph Waldo Emerson had a slightly different idea. He said, the value of a principle is the number of things it will explain. Now, if you get 10,000 examples, that does make it a more valuable hypothesis. It doesn't prove it's right. It still can be disproven, but it means it's important, it's real, and it's helpful. This is why we do what's called replication. But all the replication in the world won't prove it. But if we replicate a lot, our hypothesis gains in value. I think some kinds of replication are more important than others. If we find a result that is different from the original result, but it shows it's true for people from here, people from there, different cultures, it becomes even more valuable. And to me, the big payoff, which has worked for me, you find that your hypothesis works and you're surprised. You didn't think it was that widespread. You find a place there where it applies, and you didn't know that was true. Now, I have a hypothesis today. Well, it's all based on an original hypothesis I got about 45 years ago that also turns out, I think, to be very, very valuable. And it says, we acquire language in one way, and that's when we understand it. Someday someone might disprove it, but so far it has turned out to be correct. And it's turned out to be correct in a wide variety of situations. So it looks pretty good. Karl Popper would be very happy with this because there's no counter evidence. No one's disproved it. And Emerson would be happy because it keeps working. We find more and more cases all the time. What I'm going to show you today, this morning, are some case histories. People's experiences acquiring English, a lot of cases doing English in Korea, as a matter of fact, what we call correlational studies, and we'll see one experiment at the end. They all come to the same conclusion. Comprehensible input works, and specifically one kind, reading. Reading for pleasure, the kind of reading that we do all the time. We call it light reading of fiction. Let me tell you where I got the whole idea. I live about 40 kilometers from the city of Santa Monica. I live in a suburb, and I don't travel much anymore. I'm still in quarantine, I think. But I used to go to Santa Monica all the time. I used to drive the 40-minute ride 3 days a week. One reason is to see my grandchildren. You just met Sydney. She has a wonderful brother, Julian, and I used to like to go hang out with them. And they live in Santa Monica. And I used to go to Gold's Gym and lift weights, the best gym in the world. So I drove that ride 40 minutes a week, and the ride is boring. I don't listen to the radio when I drive because the radio is all extremely conservative, the same stuff over and over. I don't listen to music. I don't listen to music because if you want the good music, you have to pay for it, and I'm not going to do that. So I went to the local library. I went to the Santa Monica Public Library where my daughter used to work, and that's Sydney's mom. And I started taking out books, stories, CDs, audiobooks, and listened to them in the car, and it was wonderful. I couldn't find them in other languages. They only had them in English, and they had mostly bestsellers, popular novels, so that's what I listened to. That was a life-changing experience. I found out that popular fiction, bestsellers, is of surprisingly high quality. The first one I listened to was Harry Potter. It was wonderful. It was so good. And this has happened to you. You come to your driveway, you're about to get out of your car, and you sit in the car and you listen to the end of this chapter because it's so good. I listened to Harry Potter, which is all about school, Hogwarts. One of the heroes, Dumbledore, is the principal of the school. So as an educator, I really like that. After that, I started listening to detective stories. And I don't care, but they were well done. Then I started listening to an author named John Grisham, who wrote novels about the law. I don't care about the law. I never wanted to go to law school, but it was so interesting, so well done. I learned a lot about the law. Let me stop this for a moment and tell you about my cousin Evelyn. I'm very close to Evelyn. She was the older cousin when I was growing up. She was very close to my mom, one of her aunts. And I used to spend lots of time with Evelyn and her wonderful husband, Marty. Evelyn told me not too long ago, she's in her 90s now, she said, Stephen, I want to find out about law. I'll take a class. I said, Evelyn, don't bother. Read John Grisham's novels. You'll learn all about the law. I came to the conclusion that 10 John Grisham novels is like a year of law school. It's that good. You get knowledge, you get vocabulary, you get everything. Well, I'm going to begin with a case history, one of my favorites. This is a young lady named Elizabeth Murray. Elizabeth Murray grew up in New York, very deep poverty, very poor. Her father had a very interesting habit. He would go to the local public libraries, get a library card, take out all the books he could, bring them home, and he never returned them. The house that Elizabeth Murray grew up with was full of stolen library books from libraries throughout New York. She had a lot of reading material. She didn't like school. She hated school, so she just didn't go. She would show up for the last week, just in time to take the examinations at the end. But during the year, she'd have a good time, and she read these books that Daddy brought home from all these libraries. She passed her exams easily because of all the reading she had done. Her vocabulary was great, her grammar was great, and she knew an enormous amount. Here's what she said, and I quote her, "Any formal education I received came from the few days I spent in attendance, mixed with knowledge I absorbed from random readings of my or Daddy's ever-growing supply of unreturned library books. As long as I showed up for the last few weeks of classes to take the test, I kept squeaking by from grade to grade." That was the first case I saw, and I realized something was up. The second case I found out from someone whom some of you know, Kyung-Suk Cho, lives in Busan. She was my former student. And Busan, as some of you know, has a pretty good English library. And Kyung-Suk Cho, Dr. Cho now, made the acquaintance of a young lady who's now a teenager. Her name is Sodam, lived in Busan, and was active in the English library. She was a good reader in Korean. She liked to read in English. When she was in 4th grade, the library started a reading program. Now, there are problems with just depending on the English library because there's a limit how many books you can take out. You can only take out 5 books, and you can only keep them for 2 weeks. So Sudam's mom got busy. She got a library card. Relatives got library cards. Friends got library cards, so Sudam could take out all the books she wanted to. Over a period of 2 years, grades 4 to 6, she took out over 1,000 English books from the library and loved to read in English. She won every major prize in English offered anywhere. She won a nationwide prize for English competence in writing and in public speaking open to middle school students, and a number of contests. One of her teachers, who's a native speaker of English, told me, talking to her, it's like talking to a native speaker. I met her. I gave a conference I gave a workshop in Korea, and Saddam came with her mom because they knew I'd helped Kyung Suk Cho write this article. I went out for ice cream with Saddam and her little sister. Her teacher was right. Her English is wonderful. You can talk, if you're a native speaker, you can talk easily and freely, and she will understand. All her books she selected herself. She read mostly fiction. She read what she wanted to read. Here's another case history from a former student of mine, also of Korean background. The student is now a professor at California State University at Long Beach and doing very well. Her name is Fei Shin. And the student she described was Sophia. Sophia actually came to the United States from Taiwan. By the time she was in high school, her English was extremely good. And she had a reading habit. An odd thing happened. In the school she went to, you took an English reading test at the beginning of the year. You took another English reading test at the end of the year. Sophia's English got worse over the year. She got worse and worse. She got lower scores. When she came back in the fall, her scores were higher than they were ever. What did she do over the summer? This happened in the United States. She went to the local public library. She averaged 50 books that she selected herself over the summer. Not classics, but Nancy Drew, Sweet Valley High, Christy Miller. She read and read and read. Her English got better. Her mom said, maybe I should keep her home during the year. School isn't doing her much good. Her English class was boring, and she didn't have time to do all the reading. Her English improved because she found a source of books. Well, let's go to another one. These people just happen to be Korean. This is really an accident. Grace Cho, Cal State Long Beach, another very successful student of mine. We've done wonderful work in what's called heritage language. Grace, a good friend of mine and my former student, my grandson, Julian, got to know her daughter, Crystal, and when they were little kids, we all went out together. It was very nice. Anyway, Grace has maintained her Korean at a very high level, and she went to a local party, and the party was attended by local Korean Americans, and she chatted with them, and to her surprise, they spoke Korean very, very well. Usually, these are people who were born in the United States, had been in the United States more than 30 years, and their Korean was still at a very high level. Usually that doesn't happen. People get worse in the heritage language, okay? And they get better in English all the time. Didn't happen here. She chatted with these people in Korean, and she was amazed at how well they spoke Korean. She made an appointment with each of them to interview them. Here's what she found. The 7 people that she interviewed, 5 out of 7 were readers in Korean. They got access to books, and 3 of the 5 gave reading the credit. I'll give you a couple of cases. They selected the books themselves. A young man named Howard, now a high school math teacher, told Dr. Cho, I read every day. When I was hooked on Chinese novels translated into Korean, especially historical novels, I read from 3 to 4 hours a day, many hours trying to finish a novel in one sitting. She read the 3 Kingdoms series in Korean. So Howard, so of course he got very good. Another one, Tony, young man, well now mature man. To me, Korean language classes didn't help very much. That's a common experience. I think I maintain Korean from simply reading books, magazines, and newspapers, and from watching Korean dramas. We call them soap operas, and talking about them with church friends and teachers afterwards. And as you well know, Korea's gift to the world is Korean drama. The soap operas and the movies. When I'm on an international flight, I always watch the Korean movies. I usually like violent movies where things blow up and cars explode and all that. But if the movie's Korean, I will watch it. And it's usually a human interest story about family, friends, and it is fabulous. And this is a wonderful source. You combine that in reading. So he got very, very good. And it all came, he said, from reading. He became a state-certified professional Korean translator from the reading. Another young man, Lucas, he became a dedicated reader in Korean after arriving in the United States. Here's what he said. My understanding of Korean improved to the college level, living in the United States just from reading for pleasure. I read Korean fables, historical biographies. One of my favorite books was, let me say it right, Musoyu, Not Possessing Anything, written by a Korean monk. He said his Korean reading helped him develop his Korean so well, he became a volunteer interpreter for the police department. Well, the next source, again, my students, I'm so proud of them. This is Lucy Tse, who this was part of her research when she was my graduate student. This was published, be impressed, the Harvard Educational Review, top journals. Most of Dr. Tse's subjects were young people, ages 18 to 24, born in the United States, did not live for long periods of time in the country where the language was spoken. They had all their education in the United States. They developed their heritage languages. Some were speakers of Cantonese, some Spanish, some Japanese. All of them said it was reading that did it. All of them did light reading, magazines. My special interest, comic books. Absolutely wonderful. And for the most part, they read fiction for pleasure. Fiction is the answer. Where did they get the books? They got them from mommy and daddy. Here's one woman, Helen. Her father brought home a newspaper in Chinese every day to read. Julie's mother brought home newspapers, which she bought at the Japanese market. They got newspapers from a local market, magazines, borrowed from friends, traded. Helen had access to her mother's celebrity magazines and occasionally read articles from her brother's car magazines in Chinese. Eventually, they started buying them themselves. Mommy and Daddy brought home novels, and they read those too. Well, these are the case histories. Let me give you some research studies, and we'll see that they come to very, very similar conclusions. Correlational. Elegant study done at the University of Indiana. Constantino, Lee Cho, and me back in 1997. They looked at people who were graduate students there, international students, and looked to see what were predictors of TOEFL scores, the big standardized test. Who did better? There were three significant predictors. How long you'd been in the United States, makes sense. How long they had studied English in their home country, that helped. How much reading they did in English. We did a separate study of the reading. The more books they read in English, the better they did on TOEFL. Those who read no books at all had TOEFL score of 543. Those who read 1 to 5 books, 555. Those who read 6 to 10 goes up, 583. Those who read between 11 and 50, 605. A couple of people read more than 50 books, their scores were 613. The more you read, the better you do on these tests. This is so consistent. I've got to tell you, Karl Popper, there are no counterexamples. We have found this everywhere. Let me tell you about Benico Mason's study, which I think may be the most spectacular. Benico was a college professor. She just retired and also did some teaching of English as a foreign language at a university. Her students came having low levels of English, and the first 2 semesters listening to stories that she made comprehensible. Very nice introduction. Some students did more, some did less. Their reading was called guided self-selected reading. they would read lots and lots and lots of very easy books in English. Benico managed to assemble a wonderful library of easy readers in English. Her students had access to 5,000 graded readers. I think that's magnificent. They would select what they wanted with help from the teachers. Here is the results, okay? They did this anywhere from 4 months to 3 years, mostly graded readers and eventually books for young adults, Judy Blume, etc. She was able to estimate how much time they spent reading. The correlation between how long they read, how many books, and their scores on the TOEFL was nearly perfect. Both of you who remember your statistics class, correlation was 0.94. That's super duper high. She also found for every hour they read, they gained about a little more than a half a point on the TOEFL, which means that if you start with a low score like 200 and you start reading a couple hours a day for pleasure, this is fun. No quizzes, no questions at the end of the chapter. You don't like the book, you put it down. No vocabulary quizzes. You can go from the lowest level of proficiency to nearly the highest in just a few years of reading for fun, pleasure reading. This is remarkable. We also found that if they did other things, some of them did vocabulary study, TOEFL preparation, conversation, didn't matter. It was the reading that counted. Well, let me summarize what we have so far. We found that self-selected reading has been a winner in every single study we have looked at. It has never, ever lost. Now, a critic can always say, gee, I'm not convinced. Maybe you can do it. We'll find it someday. Maybe. But what people are saying, since I'm not convinced, I'll do what we know is wrong. I'll do old-fashioned grammar, vocabulary, reading hard passages, underline all the verbs, things we torture students with. This has evidence, and a lot of it. I would rather go with what works so far than go with methods that we know don't work. I want to make a recommendation to you. I'd like you to try something that I've done. During the time of the coronavirus was around, I spent nearly all my time at home. I was in what we call quarantine, and I had a pretty good time. In fact, I don't want to give it up. I like staying home. I was home alone with my girlfriend. My girlfriend and I have been married for 55 years, and we're doing great. We have a nice time, etc. I couldn't have better company. I've been practicing the piano, which is lots of fun. I've been pumping iron, exercising, and I've been reading. I've been reading graded readers in Spanish. My Spanish, it's like language number 4 for me. I'm okay. I can have a conversation, but I'm not real good. I'm getting better. I know I'm getting better. I give myself a test every Friday. On Fridays, I go to the local supermarket called Ralph's, and I made friends with one of the workers there. His name is Fidel, and Fidel is from Mexico. And when he was checking me out, I spoke to him in Spanish. He answered in English, of course. And I said to him in Spanish, Fidel, tú puedes ayudarme, you can help me. Mi meta es hablar español como ustedes. I want to speak Spanish the way you do. He loved it. Every week I go there. We speak 2-3 minutes of Spanish, that's all. I'm getting better because he's talking more rapidly. He's using more complicated language. He can sense that I'm getting better. My parting message to you: try this on yourself. Do it for English. Follow Benico Mason's idea. Get lots of easy, light fiction, stuff you're going to enjoy, stuff that's so interesting and so much fun you'll feel guilty, because that's what I've been doing, and let me tell you, it absolutely works. In the 2 minutes remaining, I want to tell you about one more study. This was done in 1970, 50 years ago. I just discovered it. This was for native speakers. This shows this works everywhere. Emerson would be so happy. It was an English composition class. 2 groups. One group wrote 2 compositions every day. Teacher corrected them. The other group did more reading. Guess which group did better? We have known this, folks, for 50 years. It's about time we try it. Try it, get some easy books, and let the world know if it's working or not. Thank you very much. 감사합니다. And let me say thank you to Sydney Glasser for helping me out. It's been good talking to you. Sydney's going to wave goodbye. Okay, bye everybody. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, Professor Stephen Crescent. Also, I would like to thank your daughter, aka the engineer, for helping him to make the video. Well, this is focusing more on the light reading that is pursued by the libraries. So it is more like a selective reading and is a good evidence. So it has a very great importance. And I believe that this implies a lot to the people who would like to develop the further reading promotion policies. We completed the 1 keynote speech and 2 sessions. We are going to have a break. We are going to be back at 3:40, and we are going to start the next part of the symposium. Thank you very much.
Now, Mr. Eric Chin will be the next presenter. He has been working as a legal advisor to the National Library Committee to provide legal advice to national libraries, public libraries, and National Archives of Singapore. He received the master's degree on informatics at Nanyang Technical University in 2010. Thereafter, he worked as the director of the National Archives of Singapore from 2012 to 2017 and was also the advisor to the National Heritage Board. Now, let's welcome Mr. Eric Chin, who will be talking about the reform of copyrights to enhance access to digital data. Please watch his presentation.
Hello, I'm Eric from Singapore. As I speak now, there's a pitter-patter of rain in the background. If you can hear it, I hope that it provides a soothing backdrop to this talk. Good afternoon, based on Korean time. I'm privileged today to be able to share with you on an important topic of the intersection between copyright reform and digital content that libraries hold. Our libraries are, of course, wonderful places where there's lots of knowledge for learning. There is lots of inspiration for creating things, and it gives us lots of enjoyment. All these things can come together because librarians have, in a determined way and for a long time, been collecting, organizing, preserving, and giving access to library collections. The form that library collections take has progressively changed, and now in the digital era, there's lots that is born digital or digitized, meaning that the things that we used to hold in analog form, like analog sound recordings or print documents, can be digitized in order to enhance the way in which they can be delivered or used. With this proliferation of digital content, there's a lot more interaction, if you will, between library services and functions and copyright law. Where I'm coming from is this. The devices and the machines that we use in order to collect, preserve, and give access to digital content, they all work in a certain way where the tendency is for it to create a copy of the digital content concerned. At least a short-term copy, a temporary one, or an incidental copy. Because a copy is made, some do pause and wonder whether copyright is being infringed. To look deeper into this issue of copyright, I go to my slides. The first thing to say and make clear is that there is, of course, nothing wrong whatsoever with an intellectual property right, such as copyright, that gives to the creator, such as the authors, composers, producers, a right for a certain period to exploit the works they have created. So on the left here, you see a set of typical works that you can find in the library: literary works, published works, sound recordings, films, and so on. Each of these types of works has a set of exclusive rights tied to it that is owned by the copyright owner. And if you drill in on these exclusive rights, you will invariably find a right to reproduce the work, a right to make a copy of the work. Reproduction and copying is central to the exclusive rights that the copyright owner has. And there's nothing wrong in that. It is for them to exploit it in order for them to be incentivized and enabled to create more for our enjoyment and for our knowledge. So that's all good. But there's another side to copyright law in relation to public interest. So when did this come about and what is it about? This is the first ever statute relating to copyright in the world, the Statute of Anne from 1710. Notice that it does not begin by talking about printers, booksellers. It begins by talking about an act for the encouragement of learning. So it means that from the very start of copyright law, of this concept and idea of copyright law, there was always a need to find the balance between what is fair to creators and the wider public interest to be served by copyright laws. In relation to the public interest, there's this, it's not just the social element where you uplift certain members of society through education, let's say, and you are able to create more dramatic artistic works for the enjoyment of all. There's also the hardcore economic contributions where if more copyrighted works are made available to researchers, academics, to undertake research and studies, science will progress, industries will develop, jobs will be created, and so on. So there's always this balance to be had, and we will look at how this pans out by looking at certain library functions to do with digital content and how they intersect with copyright laws and whether reforms can make things better. Let's start with where all of us nowadays, not just the younger generation, but all of us go to for information, for news, for entertainment. That's on online platforms such as the internet and mobile platforms. Even many traditional, let's say, newspaper media companies some of them have even given up their print versions altogether. There is one such newspaper in Singapore, it's given up its print edition altogether. It's now purely a website news outlet. But it's not just news that is there. What is now up on the online platforms are records and traces of our social lives, our social memories, important cultural and historical moments for our people. And let me give two examples here. One is, this is a tweet by Prime Minister of Singapore, Lee Hsien Loong, talking about why our National Day this year had to be postponed due to the pandemic. If the National Librarian of Singapore wanted to document how Singaporeans celebrated National Day this year, this tweet will be one of the important things to collect, to understand and remember what happened during this period. This is another classic example, if you will. This dance instructor was recording herself dancing, performing on Facebook. This video was being uploaded onto Facebook, and she did not realize, but in the background, the military coup in Myanmar was taking place. So especially if you are a national library that is mandated to collect the documentary history, the cultural life, the historical records of your country, you cannot just stop at the printed documents, but you need to also collect from online platforms. But how to do that? There's so much out there, and many libraries have found that permission seeking leads to very poor results. Many people who upload to the online platforms simply ignore requests for permission. And the fact is also that many who upload online don't put a link to themselves. You may not even know who the creator was. And therefore, it has come to be that a number of countries have enacted legislation to allow their national libraries to be able to collect content that is online without having to seek permission. And the law expressly says that such a collection, the act of collecting, does not infringe copyright, meaning that copyright still also stays with the creator. But this does mean that the National Library needs to moderate how much of this content it maybe puts online, right? It is one thing for the library to allow such content to be for private study or research, for academics, for researchers, but perhaps it shouldn't be putting all of this online immediately. Take the example of that newspaper outlet I talked about that is now totally on the website. If a national library were to grab the content from their website every day and to put it up immediately somewhere else, it would be cannibalizing the original website. It would be doing a great disservice to the business model of this website and may affect its viability and sustainability. So that's not what a library wants to do, right? So, but there's a balance to be found, and I leave you to think about that, and maybe we can talk about that when we come to the Q&A. I move on to another aspect of what libraries have and what possibilities there are if we were to have the kind of laws that allow us to unlock the key to rich data. So we all know that big data leads to great results. The social media companies, the internet companies that are raking in the billions are using big data, and all the time they are identifying new issues and new trends, new business models to go into, new industries to create, and so on. This rich insight is only possible when you run a computer to analyze data. It is not possible when it is just the human mind flipping page to page to page of a journal in a slow way. This rich data, many libraries actually have it. But many libraries are afraid to collaborate with businesses, afraid to collaborate with research institutions. And so when there's a failure to cooperate this way, new research, new businesses don't come to fruition. And the economy of a country may lag behind because of that. In view of this, some countries have started to enact laws which expressly allow their organizations that hold big data to share them with those that want to do computational data analysis. And the law expressly says that such sharing of the data does not amount to copyright infringement. Countries that have done this, I believe, include the UK and Japan, and Singapore is itself now looking at such law.
이러한 법 도입을 고려하고 있는 중입니다.
This is one possible area of reform
그래서
that
제가
other
생각했을
countries can
때는
think about.
다른 국가도 이러한 모델에 대해서 이러한 입법 도입에 대해서 생각해 볼 필요가 있다고 생각합니다. 왜냐하면 머신러닝이나
data and text mining end up with ideas and concepts and insights that actually don't devalue the original copyrighted works that the data is drawn from. So there's a lot to be said about changing the law with regard to this. The next area I want to quickly touch on is to do with a set of statutory library exceptions that exist in most countries. Not all different countries have different sets of library exceptions that allow libraries to, for example, allow copying to an extent, quite often 10% of something for research or study purposes, to allow a library to make copies for preservation or replacement purposes, to potentially also allow document supply or interlibrary loan by making copies. This set of library exceptions are part of that societal balancing act between I will give the creators a right for a certain number of years to exploit the copyright. In return, society at large has some exceptions to allow use of the copyrighted materials, including these library exceptions. It was easy enough to apply these exceptions in the days when we are dealing with a printed book. But nowadays, when a lot of the journals and books come in ebook form, and we buy subscriptions to databases, we end up having to sign license agreements for access. And sometimes when we click on these license agreements to accept them, what happens is that we incidentally negate the statutory library exceptions that we are supposed to have under copyright law. So there are some countries that are looking at this very carefully, and they're saying, hey, look, again, copyright law has seen it fit to give a monopoly right to creators for a certain period. In return, they are supposed to allow libraries, for example, to allow some copies to be made for private study purposes, to allow the library to maybe make a preservation copy of some material. But such licensing agreements may override all these important library exceptions. So some countries are creating or enacting laws that expressly say that any licensing terms that tries to override certain key library exceptions will be deemed to be void. Such laws will preserve that essential balance between the rights of creators and the public interest rights that libraries seek to uphold. Next. When we get more content in digital format as well, it is possible for publishers and creators to embed within that digital file what is known as technological protection measures. This could be software or some application that prevents the copying of that work. On the face of it, well and good. However, there are problems in relation to at least two library functions. First is the library function of a national library that receives legal deposits of publications from its country. The intention of this is for the National Library to be able to keep a full and comprehensive collection of every publication that has been created within the jurisdiction of that country. In the past, when a printed book was given, with proper preservation and care, that book can last many hundreds of years or more. But when, let's say, an e-book version is provided instead as part of the legal deposit, and if that file comes with a technological protection measures, what it means is that when that technology becomes obsolete and technology races so quickly ahead, so within 5 to 10 years, the library will find that it would be unable to open that book anymore. It is useless for the library to keep that digital file when the technological protection measure that's overlaid over it prevents the library from opening up this book in order to allow it to be looked at for research purposes. So in Singapore, for example, we have enacted a law where if an e-book is to be deposited, it has to be deposited in the format that is determined by the library, and it has to be also deposited without any technological protection measures overlaid over it. So we need a clean copy without any digital locks. The other aspect to this, where there's been a negative impact of or potential negative impact of technological protection measures embedded within e-publications and so on, is that we now have this wonderful WIPO-Marrakesh Treaty to facilitate access to published works for persons who are blind, visually impaired, or otherwise print disabled. The idea here was for those who are print disabled to be able to, for the institutions that assist such people, to be able to easily make a copy in a format that would facilitate access to those with the disabilities. But if there's a technological protection measure embedded, that ability to create the print disabled copy that is accessible may be hindered. And so there needs to be laws in countries that allow certain institutions to circumvent the technological protection measures, or to demand a copy of a publication free from technological protection measures. Lastly, to finish, I'll just say that technology moves very quickly. Certain countries have forged more quickly ahead of others to meet the technological changes and to amend their copyright laws. So what I would say is I would commend all countries to go and take a look at this study done by WIPO, prepared by Professor Kenneth Cruz, where he studies the copyright regime in over 180 countries and sets out what exceptions each country may have that will benefit its society. And a lot of this is done through the libraries. Have a look at this to know where your country stands. Have a look at this to know where some countries have forged ahead in creating laws that allow them to better utilize the digital collections that they have to give better access and to squeeze out more rich data from the digital content that they have. There is no need for anyone to be left behind when the model laws are all readily available. And this study is one good way of learning all about that. It will not be easy, and I like to just quote this to finish off. These two gentlemen, when talking about how challenging the work of libraries and archives can be, they have said that even if it's challenging, let's do it. Because all worthy activities tend to be challenging. With that, I hope to be able to address any questions we have in Q&A. Thank you very much.
Mr. Eric Chin, thank you very much for your video. From now, we'll have the question and answer time. Mr. Eric Chin gave us the pre-recorded video, but he's joining now with us through Zoom. If you have any question, please put up your questions on the chat room. So I will share your questions with Mr. Eric Chin. Now Eric is joining us.
다시 안내를 드리겠습니다. 발표는 영상으로 에릭 친님이
So Mr. Chin provided his presentation via the pre-recorded video, but he is now joining with us in Zoom to have Q&A session. If you have any question, please put your questions on YouTube chat rooms.
제가 질문 드리겠습니다.
So I'll give you a question.
지금 준비가 안 됐는데. 일단 발표에서
During your presentation, you have explained about the conflicts between the copyright holders and the use of digital contents, and this kind of conflicts happen a lot in many libraries due to the pandemic, and the copyright holders and the users of digital contents need to make a consensus of the definition of this and the scope of what kind of contents can be shared without infringing copyrights. In particular, in Korea, we have a lot of small and medium-sized publishers rather than large publishers, and we need to protect their profits to promote the publishing industry. So I wonder what kind of situation in the Singapore's publishing industry is, and what kind of cases do you have to share with us about the promotion of copyrights protection that has been driven by libraries? So I think you are muted. Please unmute yourself.
Whenever we deal with
우리가
Okay, I'll try again.
예, 제가 다시 말씀드리겠습니다.
We try to be respectful of
우리는
copyright in all things that we do.
우리가 하는 모든 행위에 있어서 저작권을 침해하지 않으려고 노력하고 있습니다.
And in relation to that, we work very closely with the Singapore Book Publishers Association.
싱가포르의 출판 산업 협회는
To understand the issues that creators, writers, and publishers are facing.
저작권자, 창작자, 저자가 저자의 입장을 잘 이해하고 있습니다.
But to also explain to them the
그런데 우리는 그들에게 또한
that libraries need to do.
도서관이 해야 되는 중요한 일에 대해서도 설득하고 설명하고 있습니다.
And why libraries need certain exceptions in order
왜
to
도서관 예외 조항이
give
필요한지에
better
대해서
access
설명하고
to
있습니다.
our patrons. Of course, in this digital era, I think all countries need to update their copyright laws to meet the
저작권법을
challenges
개정할
of
필요가
digital
있습니다.
material.
디지털화된 컨텐츠를 이용하는데 적합하게 저작권법을 개정할 필요가 있습니다.
And I would just say that we engage our book publishers very closely on this, so that we
싱가포르는
understand where each other comes
출판
from.
업계와 긴밀하게 대화하고 있습니다. 그래서 저작권법의 개혁의 필요성에 대해서 논의를 충분히 진행해 왔습니다. 감사합니다.
네. 에릭치님 발표에 이어서 싱가포르에서
Mr. Eric Chen, thank you for your participation in the Q&A session as well as the presentations via Zoom.
다음 발표로
We'll have the next presentation.
헬싱키 오디 도서관을 도서관이라고
Do you think we should call Helsinki OD Library, Helsinki Central Library, OD a library? This is a place where children running around, students first-hand use 3D printers, and YouTube creators film how they cook.
촬영한다고 합니다. 그리고 당연히
And of course, there are books.
로비인 1층에는
On the first floor, which is a lobby,
레스토랑,
there are coffee shop, restaurant, multi-purpose hall, and cinema, while there are computer room, cooking studio, recording room, and conference room on the second floor. It is said that 100,000 books are shelved on the third floor. Now, we will invite Mr. Tachu Salonen, a librarian at the Children and Youth team of Helsinki Central Library OD in Finland to talk about new reading promotion programs in the digital era implemented in Helsinki Central Library OD. So let's watch his presentation together.
Good day, everyone. My name is Tatu Salonen, and I am librarian in Children and Young Adults team in Helsinki Central Library OD. First of all, I would like to thank National Library for Children and Young Adults for reaching us all the way from Korea and showing interest in our library. I am very honored to represent our library and our team in this symposium. In the presentation, I will introduce new reading promotion programs that have been implemented in our library, and especially what kind of appliances of the digital era we have been using. I will focus on our workshops, that what we offer for schools and kindergartens, and which are designed to support children in their learning and reading. But first of all, let me present a small introduction of our library. Helsinki Central Library OD is an innovative new library with a mission to develop and find new ways to showcase literature and encourage the citizens to learn important skills needed in modern society. OD also provides an important space for the people to participate in the society and get together, being residents' shared living room, workspace, and learning environment. Situated right at the heart of Helsinki, OD has become a hugely popular library since opening its doors in December of 2018. In 2019, Audi attracted over 3 million visitors, ranking in the top 5 of the most popular libraries in the world. For example, Audi attracts double the number of visitors compared to the famous British Library in London. Audi also received a recognition from the International Federation of Library Associations and Institutions, IFLA, who granted Audi the Best New Library in the World award in 2019. Other awards include International Cultural Heritage Award, Best in Heritage, and Detailed Prize for Exceptional Architecture in 2020. Since the beginning, it was very clear that we at Audi want to be part of creating new kind of future and heritage for the people. Libraries in Finland and in Helsinki have an important role in supporting children and young adults in their learning. Besides providing books and spaces for learning, libraries also assist schools in their neighborhoods by offering different kinds of educational services, such as classes of library use and media literacy, book talks, and story times. Every library has obligation to provide these services for nearby schools. Audi's role in this library field is a bit different. This is mainly because of two reasons. Firstly, Audi is located right at the center of Helsinki and has practically no schools nearby. And for that reason, there are no neighboring schools to provide these services. But more importantly, Audi's mission is to function as a special kind of developer library. Audi's role is to broaden the possibilities what libraries can be. That includes thinking new kind of approaches to educating children and creating new reading programs that are modern, innovating, and make use of different possibilities of the digital era. Like I said earlier, in this presentation I will focus on the workshops we have been offering for schools and kindergartens. At Audi we have developed different and unique workshops for children and young adults. The aim of these workshops is to promote reading and learning in new and interesting ways. One of the focuses is also to implement different possibilities of the digital era into these workshops. That way, combining new technologies and various applications with literature, we can possibly make children and young adults feel intrigued and fascinated with reading. We at Audi offer different kind of workshops for children aged 4 to 15. The workshops are carefully designed to support the contents of the new National Core Curriculum for Basic Education, provided by the Finnish National Board of Education. Two professional librarians of Audi's Children and Young Adults team execute every workshop, which can be booked through a portal. Teachers can also choose their desired theme for the workshops. Themes of the workshops range from stories and word art to coding, augmented reality, and visual arts and crafts. The main goal of the workshops is creating and igniting a new and lasting spark for reading and lifelong learning. We believe that it can be achieved through phenomenon-based learning and play, focusing on cultivating multiliteracy skills and visual expression, and promoting science. Next, I will present more closely different kind of workshops we have been offering here at Audi. First, I will introduce a couple workshops that concentrate on visual literacy. Illustrate the Story is a workshop that seeks to ignite imagination of children, deepen their interest in stories and picture books, and give new tools to express themselves artistically. The goal of the workshop is to develop multiliteracy skills and understanding of visual storytelling. Also, literary themes and/or graphic design can be taught depending on the level of the students. Workshop intertwines well with literacy and art studies. Workshop aims to cultivate digital skills also. Children will be equipped with new kind of knowledge and terminology about digital art and pictures, such as picture size, resolution, and different formats, and also how to use Google Drive. Children learn to use also equipment that we have in Audi, such as large format printer, vinyl cutter, or heat press. At the beginning of the workshop, children will be picked up from the lobby and brought to the storytelling room. For 7 to 8 years old children, we are reading Pasi Pitkänen's picture book Monster Tournament, which you can see a picture in the background. After the story time, children will be instructed to design and draw either their own monster or an egg of a monster. Children are using handheld iPads to illustrate this. We are using Adobe Fresco or Procreate applications. Instructors give guidance on using the apps, how to choose different colors and pencils, etc. Before the drawing session, the instructor will show from the large screen how to use the pads and Apple Pens, and how to use a thick black line and draw simple images with it. When the drawings are done, they will be saved to Google Drive. After the drawings have been saved, they'll all go together as a group to the large format printer, where the pictures are printed into a large poster. All the workshops I will be presenting here can be concluded as wanted. The group can gather into the closed space to discuss about story and the pictures. They can be taken around the workspace also and give introduction about the machines that we have in Audi. The children's collection of books or the use of library can also be talked about. We can make new library cards, loan books, or even read a new story. New covers for a book is a similar kind of artistic workshop with digital and graphic design in its focus. The workshop is aimed for a bit older audience. In the beginning, instructors give children a book talk, where they recommend and describe selected interesting books for them. After introducing children to these books, they are asked to pick their favorites and to take a role of graphic designer, whose job is to create covers for the book. Then it's time for designing. Kids are given a short lesson on book covers, what can be found there, for example, name of the book, the name of the author and the publisher, or even ISBN number. Also, a short introduction to graphic design should be given. At least the instructors have to show how to use the graphic design webpage, canva.com, which is being used in this workshop. Also, the ways to present different themes in book covers can be discussed. For example, how to present horror, comedy, or even cooking. After creating the covers with canva.com, they are saved to Google Drive and then printed with Audi's large format printer. Kids can then take them to their home or to school. The workshop is excellent in developing multiliteracy skills and visual and literary expression. it combines very well with the art and literature studies at school. We have many workshops that concentrate on the fascinating world of science and inventions. There is a hidden grammar behind all kinds of inventions, from electricity to coding and beyond. Through phenomenon-based learning and play, we can teach even small kids a lot about science, and combining it with literature, we can make it all very fascinating and interesting. The name of the next workshop says already a lot. Makey Play with Electricity is workshop about music and electricity. The goal is to inspire children with a music-themed story and Makey equipment. Makey is an application that makes use of electricity and conduction to produce different sounds. And this we then use to make children excited about science, music, and literacy. At the end of the workshop, children are also encouraged to express themselves artistically when they can improvise and compose their own musical piece using Makey. We begin the workshop with some inspiring piano music to tune the children into the right mood. Then a music-themed picture book is being read for the children. For 6 to 8 years old, we use Marika Maijala's picture book, Piano is Running Away, which you can see in the background.
When I was making this, I actually placed my hand on the paper and made little marks, just making sure I had each head in exactly the right place.
And here you saw an example what you can do with this Makey. After the story time, children are taken to the workspace with Makey appliances on the tables. Kids are then divided into pairs, and after that they are shown this clip from YouTube about Makey. Additionally, it is advisable to demonstrate how Makey and conduction of electricity works. We use an exercise to do this, where kids form a circle by holding hands. Then one student at the end of the circle is given a spoon, which is then connected with an alligator clip to the Makey. Then student at the other end of the circle is asked to tap the spoon. Instrument in the application should be making sounds. Then we ask one of the kids, maybe from the center of the circle to in the middle of the circle, to break the circle. And when doing this, the flow of electricity is interrupted and the instrument is no longer making sounds. When Makey's function has been explained, kids return to their places and basic connections are being taught. Ready-made instruments have been printed beforehand and are now handed to each pair with a pencil. The graphite of the pencil is conductive and therefore works here as an instrument, as you were able to see in the video. And this is again explained to the kids. Application from Makey's side is being opened from everyone's laptop and the plugins and connections are being made. And then the paper instrument should make sounds. Now, after that, kids are being reminded again of the musical story and are encouraged to compose their own piece based on the story. Suitable time for this is around 20 minutes. In the end, each pair can perform their own compositions. Again, this workshop can be concluded as wanted. We often want to offer some interesting science-themed literature for the kids in the end to boost the excitement we were hopefully able to create. Coding is new kind of literacy for a modern society, and learning basics on that is essential. In Audi, we have couple workshops that concentrates on this subject. In the first workshop, Coding with Olga the Squirrel, kids learn to code simple commands using programmable floor robots called B-bots. In the workshops, coding is interwoven with the story time in a way that awakens imagination of the children and makes both the story and coding more interesting. In the beginning of the workshop, the instructors explain some basics about coding, what it is and where it is used. A good way is to compare it to a language that robots and machines understand. Then the children can code themselves. It's time to play. The children are separated into pairs, where the other one functions as a robot and the other one is coding the other one. A tap in the head, for example, sends the robot kid one step forwards. Tap in the back sends the kid backwards, and taps on the shoulders command the kid to take one step left or one step right, accordingly. Then it's time for a story. We use a picture book called Olga the Squirrel by Mila Teres. In the book, children can follow the path of Olga in the search of the mystery of the forest. Instructors should ask the children to pay close attention to the different animals and characters and in which order Olga encounters them in the forest. After the story time, we ask children to try to think and remember all the animals. To help children with this, we use pictures of the characters. Then it's time for coding. We introduce kids to the B-bots. They function and move basically the same way as the kid robots in the play. By tapping the arrow buttons on top of the B-bot, kids can send them to the directions they want. Then a map with different characters from the story has been laid on the floor, and B-bot is being set to the starting point. Kids are being asked to think which character Olga met first, and then first kid in the line can program the B-bot to travel to meet the character on the map. Then the next kid can guide the robot to the next character. Every kid should have a chance to code the robot at least once. In the end, instructors can throw a robot party for the forest animals by turning off the lights in the room, playing some music, and letting the kids to code the B-bots to dance on the floor. Instructors can also guide the workshop from coding back to the story and discuss the different themes of the story. Another coding workshop for a bit older children catching words with sparrows uses sparrow robots. In this workshop, we also discuss about coding, maybe digging a bit deeper into the subject, depending on the age of the children. In this workshop, we combine coding and language with the element of play. After the kids have learned to move robots by coding them, we introduce them to the rules of play. In this game, kids have to catch words from the floor by moving their sphero on top of the word. But not just any word on the floor, it has to be a synonym for the given word. The team that manages to catch the words fastest is the winner. Lego Boost workshop is a larger workshop, separated into 4 sessions, where children can build their own Lego robot and then produce some simple coding to make them move. This is a workshop that we offer for everyone, not just for schools and kindergartens. Also, literary themes can be added to the workshop as wanted. Next, I will introduce a couple different kind of workshops dedicated to poetry. It's all about making poetry more interesting to children and young adults. In Build a Poem workshop, we introduce kids to poems and poetry, and after that kids will create their own poem using stop-motion application. Kids can work by themselves or in pairs. Good way to start the workshop is to ask if they know what a poem is. This can be actually a tricky question, so instructors must be ready to help. It is also important to select some accessible and interesting poems, themes chosen according to the age of the children, and present them in the classroom. It would be a good idea to choose also very visual poems, which will ignite some inspiration for the next phase of the workshop. This workshop combines literature and visual arts to engage and encourage children to creativity. First, we show the kids how the stop-motion application works, projecting it on the wall. We also show an example how a finished stop-motion poem looks like. As a material, we use old disposed magazines and books where children are free to cut words that resonate with them. With a black marker, they can cross over words or letters they don't need. Then they will form a poem using those words. This can happen first by putting the words in one line, but eventually they will record an animation with the stop-motion app, where the words appear one by one in the video. Often poetry and literature will appear too abstract for children. With the help of this workshop, they can have more concrete understanding about poetry and how poems are constructed using words. Maybe after the workshop, words can appear more magical and powerful for the kids. In addition to this workshop, we have also created a musical workshop, Poems Full of Sound, where we use Audi's new immersive and interactive touch wall, created by a company called Oi Oi. We project an animated image of an aurora kannel, which is traditional Finnish instrument. We project that one to the wall. Also, some forest animals and plants are included in the animated picture. What makes it interesting and fascinating is that kids are able to play the instrument by touching the strings or the plants and animals on the immersive wall. This time we combine poetry with music, sounds, and crafts. We have selected poems that go well together with the image on the wall. Same animals and plants appear in the poems, for example. In the end, kids can create their own poem and song with the help of instructors. At the end of the workshop, kids can also let their imagination fly and just play freely with the wall. It is also possible to combine crafts with the workshop. Hopefully different sounds, poems, and fascinating touch wall form an enchanting experience, which will result in a long-lasting interest towards poetry and music. We are approaching the end of the presentation, but I will still want to introduce shortly a couple ways to make story times a bit more interesting with the help of digital appliances. We have 2 storytime workshops in Audi. Play and Read with Pictures introduces kids to ebook formats. The workshop combines the ebook with the corresponding game at the end of the workshop and shows children how literature and games can join hands together. Picture Comes Alive introduces a book that has built-in augmented reality material. This story time has been connected to a brief meditation session to enhance the concentration and senses of the children. The book itself is a magical experience when different pictures on the pages become alive using accompanying application. Hopefully, the workshop can show children how books can be so much more than just some words on a page. All in all, we use many different ways to make use of digital appliances in our workshops in Ori. The means have always been carefully chosen and planned to support learning and getting children more interested and attracted to literature. We also see constantly new ways to make reading and learning more fascinating to kids. Hopefully, we were able to give some inspirational ideas to all of you as well. My name is Tatu Salonen, and on the behalf of Helsinki Central Library Ori, I thank you for your attention.
타투 살로네님,
Mr.
발표
Tatu Salonen, thank you for your
감사합니다.
presentation.
지금부터 그 발표에 대한 질의응답 시간을 갖도록 하겠습니다. 타투 살로네님도 줌을 통해서 실시간으로 참여해 주시고 계십니다. 유튜브 채팅창에 올라온 그 여러분들의 코멘트를 지금 보고 있는데요. 오디 도서관을 방문해 보고 싶다라는 코멘트도 있고요. 2년 전에 방문했었는데 게임이나 음악, 메이커 스페이스 등 공유 공간의 이미지가 강했다라는 말씀도 주셨습니다. 질문이 올라온 것은 몇 가지가 있는데요. 하나씩 질문을 드리도록 하겠습니다. 프로그램 기획을 사서가 직접 하는지 아니면 다른 프로그램 기획 전문가가 있는지 궁금하시다고 한 분이 채팅창에 질문을 올려주셨습니다. 답변을 부탁드립니다.
Good day, everyone.
안녕하십니까?
Helsinki, Finland. My name is Tatu Salonen, and thank you for your
죄송합니다.
attention.
소리가 지금 제대로 들어오고 있지 않아서 통시 통역이 불가능합니다.
To answer this question from YouTube, yes, we sometimes collaborate with
죄송합니다.
other
지금 소리가
universities,
제대로 들어오고 있지 않아서 동시 통역 제공이 불가능합니다.
but all these workshops actually
이 모든
we
워크숍은
have created just ourselves.
저희 스스로가 계획해서 진행을 합니다. 네, 사서 수준에서 계획하고 진행을 합니다. 여러 아이디어를 일단
Our other colleagues from other libraries,
동료들과 이야기를 나누어 보고
some training and
그래서 좀 훈련을 진행을
they are
해보고
all made by ourselves.
네, 다시 말해서 오디 도서관 사서들을 직접 만드는
How
프로그램입니다.
these workshops are promoted to kids. Actually, they are promoted to teachers who,
우리는
well, the teachers can book these workshops through a website where we are, and also we promote this website through different social media platforms. But the idea is to get the teachers acquainted with these workshops, and then they can book the workshop for their class.
질문에 답을 해주셨습니다. 감사합니다.
I believe it was an answer to the question I previously asked. And actually, I have another question here. It's a question from one librarian in Korea. I believe that you combine the play elements in the workshop. I think these are very impressive. So in order to carry out such programs, we need a new technology and interest. So I would like to ask for your perspective on how do you learn or gather this data or the information? Do you study on your own? Where did you get this information? What is the source of this information for the workshop?
Yes, now I heard that question. Thank you. So the source of ideas, it's we in our children and young adults team, we have 13 librarians. I heard that question. Thank you. And among these 13 libraries, of course, everyone has their own ideas, which we come up with our free time during the work. We find new interesting technologies and stuff. But also we attend to different kind of training programs provided by the library associations in Finland. And these are also very helpful when getting these kind of new ideas, what kind of new appliances we could use. But I would say it's about 50-50, like getting ideas from these training programs, and also just searching new information ourselves, and having meetings with our children and young adults team.
When you're collaborating with other research institutes or libraries, where is this new idea coming from? If there is a region without many schools around, how do you promote the library services to the students?
Yes, so I think I answered accidentally in this question in my first answer, but so we promote these to the teachers mainly through the website, where the teachers can book their desired workshop for the classroom. And also we promote these mainly for the teachers through our social media platforms and our website. So this is the way to get the teachers know the workshops, and then they can provide them and take their class to the visit to Oodi.
Thank you for your answer. I have a very last question, I think. Amid the COVID-19 situations, we almost stopped the face-to-face programs. What about Oodi Library? Are you running and operating face-to-face programs as before?
Yes, thankfully now we have been able to operate again face-to-face, and previously it was only possible, like during the last year, it was only possible with very small class sizes, which resulted in that really no class could actually attend to our workshops, which was a really shame for us that we couldn't for 1 year we haven't been able to provide these workshops actually face to face. But now last week we were able to open these again, and many classes, many classrooms and kids have been already visiting us in these workshops.
Thank you for your answer. Thank you for your time participation from afar, from the Finland. Mr. Tatu Salonen and Mr. Eric Chen from National Library Board of Singapore. Thank you very much. This concludes our 13th International Symposium on Library Services for Children and Young Adults. There were some keywords that were emphasized during the symposium. Reading and the reading programs, the traditional interest of the libraries. In addition to these keywords, and there were some new keywords emerged amid the COVID-19 situation, such as a non-face-to-face program, the copyright innovations. And I believe that it is time for us to use our creativity to overcome the current issues
코로나 상황에서
Despite the
현장에서
COVID-19
여러분들을 뵙지 못한
situations,
아쉬움이
I
크지만
feel it is
다음을
a
기약해
great
보겠습니다.
regret that we were not able to
끝까지
see you on site due to the
시청해주신
COVID-19
모든
situation,
분들께
but we hope to
특히
meet you
해외에서
soon.
참여해
Thank you
주신
everyone who has been with us
분들께도
until the
감사의
end,
말씀을
especially to those who
드리겠습니다.
participated from overseas.
국립어린이청소년도서관은
The National
어린이
Children's
청소년
and Youth
도서관의
Library
발전을
will
위해서
continue to
계속해서
strive for the development of the
여러분들과
Children's Youth Library and
이상으로
communicate with you. This concludes the 13th
어린이
International
청소년
Symposium
도서관
on
국제
Children's and Youth
심포지움을 모두
Libraries.
마치도록 하겠습니다.
Thank you very
감사합니다.
much.